people back based on where they had issues in the past.
Do we have access to that data?
Potentially. I don't know because that is Lindsay's, wheelhouse, the membership data department, but I can look into that and see.
Then just follow up really quick on that, because we have all these discussions about how to get the numbers, how to look through the numbers. Is this in-house that USAC is showing you all those numbers? Do we out-house? We have people that are really looking at data.
Yeah, so what we're doing currently in the shift that's going to take place this year is we have had this information in-house. Okay. So we've spent past several months with Rob taking that home, putting together a CRM tool out of house. So that CRM tool is going to help us gather meaningful data and apply that to not only figuring out what people are doing, but why they're doing it. And we'll also be using that for events as well, right?
So to cover, sort of the bread and butter things that NEBRA has always sort of introduced involving road design costs. Road event turnout and trends. The number of unique rider days, that the number of people who are racing their bike and doing that at the USA Cycling Sanctioned event has remained roughly the same from last year to this year. Where it has changed, training series, meaning things like the Frozen Four in the spring, Wells Avenue, the CCAP races, those events are almost entirely up. Out of all of the training events, there's only one that is down. But traditional weekend racing, the Criterium Road Race time trial, that is down like 10 to 20% for most events. So people are still out there racing, but they are shifting the way in which that they race quite dramatically. So if you're a traditional road promoter who's doing a Sunday road race or a Saturday Criterium, you have experienced the downturn. If you're doing a training race, something early in the season, Wells Avenue, I mean, your numbers basically resurrected.
Our numbers were great, and we did it was tough because we really limited the amount of races we did, but that was because we didn't want to hold a Wells ad and take riders from a traditional event. So if there was a crit race or a road race on the same day, on that same Sunday, we didn't hold Wells. And there was a reason for that, and we were hoping that would encourage people to utilize that day to go and race one of these other races, especially if there was a crit race, especially if it was local within 200, 300 miles of our race. So we looked at that sort of extreme because we didn't want to be taking people away from races that are actually, viable races. They should be going for these races.
So for cyclocross, where we don't have that training race base, the number of unique rider days has dropped considerably. Almost every event is down year over year. And again, I have those numbers and I can give them to you individually. We can talk about whether you want to anonymize it. It's something I've never really decided to put up the actual how many days down each event is, but we have it, we can do it. The exception to that rule is events that had a new date or a new venue. Night Weasels moving to a Saturday. I think 545 moved to a new venue and they went up. If you had dramatically better weather, Fruitland's Cup. They had a hurricane last year. They're back to normal weather this year. And the other exception is if you happen to be promoting in Connecticut and have juniors in your race. The Connecticut Series races, by and large, are the ones that are trending up, and that if you go and look at their actual participants, the trend is kids. You're seeing events with almost a third of their participation is juniors, and that is because of the good work that the CCAP has been doing with their programs. They're going to be talking after lunch about what you can do to make your event more junior friendly. So, knowing that things are starting to decline, where do we go? Hopefully not off the cliff. Our recommendations for promoters for this year, and this is for traditional road, cyclocross, a little bit for training. We anticipate this decline is still going to continue. So you need to plan and budget for a continued contraction. What that means is look at your event numbers. Know that that's probably the max you're going to get for this year, regardless of weather. So think about things that you can cut from your budget to make your numbers. If you need to raise your entry fees, that is something that may have to happen. If you look at the events that you are competing against, traditional road events still are wildly underpriced. I do think there's room to move, even if it's as little as $5. Reinvest in your event. If there's things that you can do to make your event more appealing to a larger demographic, you can invest in some infrastructure for your cross race. If you're a road race, if you can find somebody to help do social media, some added value to your event. Those are the things that you need to do in your event this year to get going. Revisit your motivation. Really think about why you're wanting to put on events. The very honest truth is that we have some events that are continuing just because they've always been there. And you really need to look at the rest of the market and decide, what is it that you want to be doing? You really need to want to be involved in race promotion. So if your event has a story, if it has a narrative, really think about what you can do to make that happen. Look at Colin's events all have sort of a theme. We said it over and over, the Weasel brand is a good brand.
Our theme is changing the date with 48 hours notice.
Maybe not the healthiest, but when we look at the events that we're competing against, gravel events, these non-traditional events, every one of them has a story, every one of them has a theme. There's a reason, because Private Idaho is a big thing because it's her local roads. Add some sort of a story to your race. And utilize your resources, including NEBRA. We have guides for registration setup, for volunteers. We have a social media guide. If you have questions about how to make your event more popular with the general racing community, please ask us, reach out to us. Get creative. Some of the things, you probably won't think about raising your entry fees this year. This is, you're going to have decline in riders. You've got some increased costs with your USA Cycling Insurance. There's some easy ways that you can get around that. We really encourage you to collect your NEBRA surcharge through bike reg rather than post-event. That gets you an extra $1 in your entry fee, because that $1 is coming directly from the rider through the checkout process.
Jay, can you explain what you mean right now?
Yeah.
I understand.
So last year, we worked with bike reg so that your events can now collect the NEBRA surcharge through the registration process. So when someone registers for their event, there's a mandatory question box, and that adds $1 to their cart. So if your event is doing that for all of your registrations, that money then comes directly to NEBRA. We don't invoice you after the event. And so if you have a $40 entry fee, traditionally, you've gotten $40 from bike reg, and then NEBRA will ask you for $1 after the event. This way, you're going to get $40 from bike reg, but $1, the consumer is going to pay that extra $1, and that's going to come directly to us. So it's one less thing for you to do.
So it's a separate line. If you set, that's what I'm confused about. You set your entry fee at $40.
Correct. When they go to
Bike reg is
checkout,
going to add $1.
Right.
Is there a way to set it up so if you want to, you can absorb that cost so it stays at 40, but it's still being deducted on that? Just that might make the process easier so you don't have to send out.
No. So like you
So
can
you can choose, for example, you can choose to absorb the bike reg fees, or you can choose to add it, like pass on a participant. One of you do the same thing.
I think the technical fix that we discussed with bike reg was we'll just leave it as sort of as it is. They'll send you the money, and then we'll invoice you after the event. So that would probably be the easiest way to do it.
Well, one more quick thing on entry fees. This is related to, I think a lot of us, maybe not us, but some of us are We have cycling businesses, we're here because we have some other interests also, else we wouldn't be dedicating so much time, I think, to this in a lot of ways. But as someone who owns a coaching company in a market where maybe my customer base might be declining, same thing for all of you as race organizers, the pie may be getting smaller. And so it may seem strange to raise your entry fees in that environment, right? Because they're like racers, you want to capture all of them. I think it's a really unique time because what we're seeing is there may be a smaller market, but people have more money right now. That's the recent conclusion that I made. I've never been in this 20 years of owning a coaching company, 35 years of bike racing. I don't think I've ever been in an environment where the market got smaller, but the people in the market, it's a good economy. They have more money. So that's why I think it's normally not a move that you would make, where this would be an environment where we're losing customers and increasing fees for those customers. But I actually think they can afford it.
We can also talk about prize money. It wouldn't be a NEBRA Summit if we didn't talk about prize money.
We'll get there. We don't have to do that now.
Okay,
We
but
have
that's
to
later.
add that later.
But that's part of an event cost.
But I wanted to sort of support that. I mean, also event organizers too, when I think about that. And, with our races, I've really felt that part of the success of the Victoria Series is it's to have a UCI event that's less than $50 entry fee is pretty unique. Most people are charging more than that. I think people appreciate that. So I've considered that part of our success, and I may be wrong. It may be time to. I just don't like going over that $1 per minute rate, but that's also arbitrary too. That's just a made-up number. So it may be possible to charge more.
So some of the,
Just real quick follow on that. Does it make sense to have some kind of graded entry fees where like, do
yes, yes, it does. So one of the things that, New England Pros have started experimenting with, they haven't really adopted it yet, but what we are really recommending is that you consider tiered pricing, early bird specials. Discount, if you register by X date, you'll be $10 cheaper.
I was thinking for lower categories, like so in other words, so we're not creating a barrier to entry. So maybe Cat 5s or first timers are cheap.
So there is some events that do that sort of, also generally it's tied to prize money. The more prize money you're racing for, the higher your entry. So there is some reasoning for that. Alan?
Oh, I was just going to add to what you're talking about is that in all the E-Train-C races, collegiate races, and I also do this for Bull Rock as well. I host a clinic for what's usually a lower amount than the actual race fee, and that clinic gives them an entry into the race as well. So not only are they getting professional coaching, they are also getting the first taste of, for the most part, the first taste of racing, in all for what basically is essentially half price, just roughly. But
So that you also add to their ability to upgrade faster.
Yes.
yeah, that's the rate doing a race plus the clinic.
The other half of tiered pricing is block pricing. This is something that Colin has done very successfully with his music.
For a mountain bike race.
First mountain bike race.
You did the Greenfield? Yeah.
So the concept of block pricing is you set a number, your first 50 entries are at X dollars. And so rather than a tiered price where the price goes up on a date, the price goes up after your first 100 entries. So you're able to give your customer an opportunity to register for the same price that they did last year. For those people who are going to wait, it's going to cost them a little bit more money. This is going to give you some more money in your budget and ultimately, a little more breathing room this year.
So back to one of the slides I talked about people registering late for things. I'm looking around at a whole bunch of different series for cyclocross, specifically looking at how they do their series rules. I came across one series, I don't remember where it was, but they actually stage people based on blocks. So if you register, up until 3 weeks before, that's the first cutoff for both the price break and the first couple of rows for staging. And then after that, everybody else gets staged, the last day before the race. So the advantage of that is up front, people that want to keep the series are going to have to register early.
So this is one of these things about getting creative. This could potentially work. You've seen things like Reading Rats for auction off start slots. You've seen other events sort of, first to register, first to line up. Right now, the lineup by CrossFit Point motivation is really high. So you would be taking a risk with your event to do that, but it's something that might be really fun.
I would love to respond to that. So this is where, having been in the sport for a long time and watching these changes happen, and have new organizers coming in. So, CrossFit results didn't always exist, and bike rage didn't always exist.
Right.
By the time online registration existed, was about the time that we really did have to start worrying about how we staged people, and we could stage people. We originally staged people by order of registration. And that was an incentive for people to register, and it worked. 100% works. If you run your race that way, people will sign up for it. They'll be mad at you.
Oh, I didn't want to go up there.
I know what you mean about the block. Yeah.
Assigned based on cross results.
In that block. So it's like a hybrid version, I get it, right? And so the reason why I think it's tough, because as an organizer, we're trying to solve this late registration. Like the negative side of cross results is to allow people to register at the last minute. And Colin and I have talked a lot about this year in particular has been the peak year for last minute registration.
People got noticeably better this year after like 8 years of people having the same pattern. This year, everyone finally got really good.
I got very little late registrations, but I got all of my registrations. So many on the last day, more than any other year.
Yeah.
So I think you have to consider the balance of the sporting aspect. Do you want your fast riders, like we stage in cyclocross for a reason, right? As opposed to road, right? Where it's like just flying out.
Yeah.
It matters in cross. And so what's the balance between, incentivizing registration?
To be further in that first block.
And I worry about rider backlash.
And maybe, I think there might be a middle ground here where you do this for the freeze and force. Most of our races, like, we're not UCI.
Well, forget it. I only have 2 categories for UCI. So pretend I don't, right?
No, I mean, if we don't we're not the side. So our 1, 2, 3 race in the Connecticut series, we were lucky if we broke the 10, 15 ride.
Yeah.
So for our elite racers, maybe it's not such a big deal. For the 3, 4, 5, yeah.
So I'm going to tie this into my last couple of things here. If you want to get towards that, but those sorts of things, remember, being creative is also investing in your event story. If you're not a UCI race, if you're an event that's standing out, that is your opportunity to try and do some things that are more unique. If you are an event that gets a lot of 3s and 4s, maybe this is an opportunity for you to say, hey, we're going to try this really new registration thing. If you're a traditional big UCI race, you need to stick more with what's happening nationally. The last thing, make sure you're monitoring your bike reg analytics. This is something that goes to Colin's point with people registering late. That's a change that we're never gonna get that genie back in the bottle. People are always gonna be registering late. But you can look at your bike reg analytics, and if you see that you are behind early, that trend is going to continue. So you'll see a big upsweep. Am I explaining this right? If there's something wrong early on, that's going to continue as well. Don't think that if you're down 10% a month out from your event that everyone's going to register at the last minute. You'll get an uptick, but it may still be down 10%.
Ironically, this is maybe the only year where that wasn't true. I spent a lot of time talking to people and looking at their numbers this year, and we saw a lot of events that were like behind the curve until the final day. So yes, so like I feel like everyone's curves this year changed, but like that can't keep changing. So it's still like, to his point, like definitely if you're behind the curve, that's bad. I feel like, and this next, like I was like, this might be the new curve, or it might keep getting crazier and crazier.
This goes back a little bit to remembering to plan for this contraction. Plan for lower numbers. Make sure that you're not going to be in that panic mode the last week before your event.
Sorry to keep jumping in, but a question for the community order folks who've been doing this a lot longer than me. We definitely suffer from pretty small groups on the elite side, the 1, 2, 3s. And I guess we tried doubling our prize entries this year. We definitely saw an uptick on it. Our prize list this year. We definitely saw an uptick, but still not huge. And I'm wondering, maybe Adam, like, what's the thought on that? What does enhanced prize list really attract better riders? Is there a magic formula there?
Yeah, surprisingly it doesn't, until you get, I think, to a certain point. And so like, why does like the 1-2 turnout at Fortune Cross in New Hampshire is good. Why do even elite riders go to that race? Even elite riders go to that race for the experience, and because they have a weekend off of some other UCI race they might have come to. So you have to look at who are UCI. Well, and remember the Victoria Series, we make the Cat 2s race the UCI race, and they don't do that in every region. If you're made up on the Cat 2, it's a 2-3 race that you get to do. Driving elite turnout, I would let go of your elite turnout expectations in your local races. That's not your revenues. No, you're not going to get a lot of revenue from that. A lot of times those riders want to take a weekend off because they're focusing on the bigger races. But I think 1, 2, 3 races are the way to go for non-UCI events. I do think it's nice to have a nice prize list. If you have $1,000 prize list for your men and women 1, 2, 3 fields in a local race, like people maybe will say home for that, and that's. We've been racing for $1,000 for 30 years. The big races have been $10,000 for 30 years. Those prices have, the big races have gotten bigger, small races have gotten smaller. We don't race for $1,000 anymore like we used to, right? Every crit all summer long had $1,000, 10 places. You can make a couple $100 a weekend off that, and that has gone away. I would love to see that come back up as like a local standard, because then you're supporting your local riders with a little bit of money, but is it gonna make that come? No, I focus on production and storytelling and your non-elite riders, and then the elite riders will come for the training if they're home that weekend.
I know we're gonna touch on prize money like once every 20 minutes the entire day. But from a purely financial perspective, I don't think you ever can make money adding prize money to your elites. Like if you increase prize money by $300, you're gonna get 2 more entries. You know, that's a loss. So if you're worried about budget, never do it.
I think from my standpoint, I'm interested in generating the excitement.
Right, and it's basically a loss leader because you want to make it a good race.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the way you do that is actually, it's a little bit of work, but you contact the riders. Reach out to the riders. There are riders you want at your race. You'd be better off finding out if some local rider that you like is going to be home that weekend and offering them $100 to come to your race, and then using them as part of your promotion to draw other riders in. And it's funny to pay start money in local races. But if there's someone you want there, you got to reach out to them.
Right, they see them, and other people see their opinion. No, that makes sense.
I have a non-prize money question. There's a couple of races where on-site registration is not allowed.
Yes.
What is the difference in registration on those events as per on these events where they can still register on site when they go, look, the weather's better than I thought, I'm just going to turn up and register?
Really hard to tell because a lot of those events that don't allow day of registration already sell out. They don't allow day of registration because they don't have to. There's also another tier of those events that say they don't allow day of registration, and then you're never going to say no to the money. Everybody takes that registration, even if it's pre-reg only. We have a few events that are only day of registration because it's just the format of the event. So it's generally more a factor than the fact that those events can turn out and can sell out. So getting back to this real quick, and I'll say it. For those events, this is the slide. If you're still going downhill, what can you do to keep your event going? Think about co-promotion. Think about succession for your event. If your event is important to you and you want to see it continue, how are you going to do that? How are you going to find that next generation of promoter? So start thinking about what's going to happen when you kind of don't want to do this anymore. You can't do it anymore. Your life changes. One of the things with bike races is they are put on by human beings. People's jobs change, their careers change, life changes. So does your event necessarily have to live and die with you? If you're heavily invested in it, that's fine. If it's something that you want to keep going, start thinking about other people who can, one, help you with your event this year, find a co-promoter, find more hands, two, somebody who can take it over. So Look for different clubs that can promote. Now that we no longer require clubs to put on events, you know, we need to be more active at getting multiple clubs to put on a single event. You know, there's help out there. You just need to look for. Wells Avenue and Chris Hines are great examples of, you know, Joe came in and helped take over the Wells series, and they re-envisioned it a little bit. They added some fixed dates, and their registration skyrocketed. This year, the one PBD team in Rhode Island is taking over Chris Hines. John's going to help work with them through that first year of event, and they will eventually take that over, and that race is going to continue. So, you know, John doesn't necessarily have to promote till he's done. So your event doesn't have to live and die with you. You can find help if it's important to seek it out if it's important for you. So this is my last slide, then we'll get to the remembering that where do we go from here? NEBRA's changing. We're going to talk about that a fair bit later on. The role that we've traditionally had as an administrative group is going away. We want to hear from you as to what our role should be. What should we be doing going forward? What's the vision for NEBRA after 2020? We're here ready to work for you. That is the end of my slide. Joe, thank you.
All right. We're only 9 minutes behind schedule. Too. We're doing pretty well.
This is so much better than previous years.
All right. It's all right, man. I'm confident you can get us up to like 15 minutes behind schedule.
15, 30, maybe.
I got a lot of.
Okay, so,
I do a lot to when I present.
Part of his marketing plan.
yes, and we can talk about that more in a moment. So, thank you everyone for coming. Arrow keys, right, JD?
You can just spacebar to advance.
Spacebar, thank you.
Yep.
Arrow keys working.
All right, great. I don't know, never touching my computer. So I'm sure most people have been in the room this entire time, but anyone that's here their first time, welcome. And we talk about a lot of the same things over and over. I want to bring up this one, talking about marketing. It's very important that when you want to set forward what you do, you have a good intent in mind. And yeah, I think I've been coming here this is my 4th year here. I've been a lifelong racer. And I think the biggest thing that we always talk about, this is kind of our passion project that we're doing, and it's a matter of bringing in alternative viewpoints, such as maybe a way that a professional draw can help out. We hear a lot from Adam and Colin because like their primary source of income is tied to this. Mine's not. The one viewpoint I'd like to present for today is I work in enterprise software support. So if you have some software that's distributed out to everyone, that's what I'm troubleshooting. And I'm going to fix that link later, but that presentation link will be up if you'd like that for reference. And again, part of what I wanted to bring forward talking about for this event is I helped make a lot of events happen. When I came here first in 2016, the idea of marketing, it was the idea of just publishing to Facebook, Instagram, and just like try and get the word out for these events, which is what we all really want, because again, a lot of our income is that pre-registration based bit that we have right there. Some perspective on the enterprise support side of things, which everyone's talking about how the pre-registration trend is coming up to the last day. I find it funny that Colin's stepped out of the room at this moment because I want to say thank you. He's made bike reg basically too efficient. So when we have racers that are talking about when are they actually deciding to come and register, I'm not going to pretend to be the numbers person in this room. I think in the entire nation, it's basically Colin that has this completely set up and proper. But we all have hunches, we all have ideas. And the important thing that you want to think about for marketing is when are the racers actually making their decision to attend? It's not the day before. I mean, they might be thinking about the weather, they might be thinking about, am I free or like, are my kids sick? But I think the decision to actually register, it's much further in advance. It's hard to find a proper way to track that because we always talk about numbers and how do you look through with that. There are cookies on the internet. I'm sure everyone has a web browser. They're noticing that a bit more. Every company in the world is trying to find better ways to track that information. And for right now, we don't know. We don't know when racers are actually thinking about when they're attending. I'll give my own anecdotal experience. It's about 2 weeks. 2 weeks is about that time frame. If you wanted to step up marketing, that's the time. That's when racers can actually come through and decide that they're going to attend a race. We always worry about what that exact graph is going to look like, but again, as JD was talking about, it's basically going to be the last couple of days.
Do we think that's true of older Masters riders versus younger riders? I'm not sure the behavior patterns are the same.
Yeah, but the other thing to think about too is how much will that shift the graph right there? Because we were talking about Ultracross a moment ago, and everybody that knows for 2019 Ultracross, there was a massive thunderstorm going on that weekend. Similarly for Fruitlands, they had the massive thunderstorm the weekend before. I think their pre-registration doubled. And honestly, I know the bulk of our racers tend to be Masters aged, but if you think about it,
I think what's different is the fact that most Masters races I know are already bugging me about what the schedule looks like. They may decide a week in advance to not register because it's raining, but you didn't even reach out to them for them to know your event is coming up. They've known about it for months, they're targeting it, and then they go, oh, it's raining, I'm not going to race. That's right. Trying to think about, marketing to get them interested in the event versus marketing to get them to show up when it's raining is really two different things.
And that goes more with the idea that I'm thinking about as well is like, there are people training long-term, they're making a big investment. They're not deciding the day before. Like that's something that kind of has to be clear about these pre-registration trends. They're not deciding the day before to attend. They're thinking like months, years planning. Like fun fact.
The key is that they're not acting on it.
They're not acting on it. We have to give them an opportunity to do so. Right. So actually, quick raise of hands in the room. For your event, how many of you guys have a Facebook page? Okay, how about a Twitter account? How about Instagram? How about a dedicated website? Right, so it's like, for the most part, like there's some basics that we're seeing that are like really high up in the room, and some that are like, not really. I'm gonna be super curious about this one. How many people have TikTok for their website? Nothing, and like just as a quick side note, that is like one of the biggest apps for like younger people, and that's a very odd thing to say that, oh, you should have TikTok. And I tried using that the other day for this presentation, and that again is the biggest thing of how do you get the word out? There are all these very different apps. Most of them are free, which is nice, and you have to find like the one that's like the right medium and story that you want to have for you. Previous times we've attended NEBRA Summit, we've talked about that having a website is almost mandatory. And a lot of times people will say they don't have like the patience and time to read through a website, but we can. It's hard to capture that data. So on one hand, we don't know. I think in a certain sense, I do agree that people's attention span is a little bit shorter, but that's the point of the need to drive marketing as much as possible. And the initial thought that I had for this presentation was setting up all these like technical demos for you guys. Again, that's that enterprise software support that I could do and say, look, you can, I almost set up a automated live tweeting while I'd be presenting at the same time to show that idea that you can just save time that way. You don't need to have all the bodies to do this. You can set it up ahead of time, especially because we know that pre-registration curve is set up that way. You have a question?
I don't want to sidetrack or hijack your presentation. The question that I have, in addition to the messaging, is if you look at an event like Gloucester, it was one of the first events that had a race to register because the fields would fill. Because everybody knew that the fields would fill, people registered even if they weren't sure they were going to go because they wanted to make sure that they had a spot. So something happened with Gloucester where it was an event not to be missed. And I think Battenkill was that way for a while. I think Rasputin is that way for right now, perhaps. I've seen Vermont Overland turn into that, where they can open registration a year in advance and it fills out. Now, some of that is people who haven't been. Battenkill is a great example because people went to Battenkill for a while because they hadn't been to Battenkill, and then they went a couple times and had a bad experience and stopped going. I see that happening perhaps with Rasputin right now. But when those events get that reputation, they're going to feel you have to register. like, I had 1,400 riders at Northampton, but only a few of my fields fill. So I don't have that race to registration. But I can count on a certain amount of people who are gonna come. What I wanna know is, look at SBT gravel, that steamboat. The race had never happened before. And they sold out, I don't know, was it 1,000 entries? How far in advance?
I'd like to point out that
How the hell did they do
has
that?
not seen my presentation yet, and he is exactly spot on with a lot of what we're thinking about now. Because we talk about, again, what's going on with these races. How on earth are they making this almost $1 billion pitch? We're talking about our pre-registration for the last couple of days. SPT.
It's such a flip in experiences where some races are turning people away, and the rest of us are begging for people to register a week in advance for an event we know that they're going to go to.
I would make an point and argue that sometimes the nature of the racing discipline is what drives that a bit. Gravel's new. Like, again, there might be a gravel bubble and it will burst, but it's a new thing where, you know, maybe 10 years down the road, it's going to be non-existent. So it does go both ways, but again, that's that idea. It's like, how did they set that up? How did they make such a great scheme for this? And again, another reason I do not want to do technical demos is one of the best things that's good about the New England ecosphere. Everybody does it their own way. Each race has their own feel. And a lot of what we've been getting from NEBRA sort of suggests that everybody has to do this one exact thing. You have to have a Twitter, you have to have a Facebook. And I would disagree. Everybody can do their own thing, but you should employ more of these tools. And I try to find as many icons, and there's probably even more out there. And the idea is, how do you organize it all? How on earth do you bring it forth in a way that makes sense for everybody wanting to use these tools, and also knowing what the market wants? So, right, and this is like the thing where, again, as a technical presenter, I really did want to like show like these are the analytics involved with Twitter, Facebook, and this is how it links all together. And one of the reasons why I wanted to really derail from that is I looked at the back end of Bike Reg, and I could actually, I'm not sure exactly how it tracks through, but I want to see how many Twitter referrals, how many Facebook referrals we got. The numbers are actually incredibly low as far as like coming through with them. I had to look at both a road event and a cyclocross event. And despite all that effort we had to push through with that, I think for the most part, people are still looking at Bike Reg sometime in advance, planning on it, and just saving it until the last second. But that doesn't mean that all this extra stuff doesn't help direct it towards that. This is actually a question that maybe I'll have to call in later, but when Bike Reg at the back end that tracks all that data and it says how did they register, how far back click-wise does it go through? If you don't know.
So I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but I have a related anecdote. Who in this room knows what a Facebook pixel is? Okay, have you ever run one of your events? So this year for my mountain bike race, we did Facebook advertising for not that much money, and I tracked conversions, which you can set up on Bike Reg, pretty straightforward. And 25% of the people that registered for our race had seen one of our ads on Facebook. 25%. That's great. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it like I'm marketing people that are coming to race anyway, right? Like I saw my own ad. Did it convert me? No, right? But like a lot of people see that stuff and it doesn't cost that much money. I was shocked.
How much did it cost for that?
It's like $50, $100, not
Okay.
much. But
So
yeah,
I threw some money at that this year too.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. I was,
right. You can. It's really easy to just put the code into Bike Reg and then look at the analytics back in Facebook where you can see if it went all the way to checkout. So yeah, I don't know. It works.
and that was another reason why I picked a lot of these apps right here is because they were free. Because a lot of times if it's our own personal phone, we have a hesitancy to pay for anything more than 99 cents. But in the grand scheme of a, let's say, $10,000 race budget, $50 is great. And there are ways that you can kind of curate this freely. Some of this presentation, I did want people to say things that they did, alternative thoughts. I know Collins events, they typically do use a lot of YouTube videos. Like that's one way that they drive the marketing a bit.
Yes. Sometimes I pay a lot for those. Sometimes I pay nothing. But it's past stuff.
Yeah.
Just as a way to generate hype from. Remember how cool last year was.
Exactly, and that's the thing where, like, one of the good things, again, for like New England atmosphere is we do have, like, a large bank of, like, information, like, good marketing stuff to present, but you have to get it out to the people and recognize where the audience is. And again, like, this is making me cringe a little bit. I almost might create, USA Cycling has a TikTok account, and I'd be curious if that's part of Lindsay's drive in recognizing that, yeah, if you want to get the gyms involved, you have to go where they are. And yep.
Using these tools, how do we keep from all just fishing in the same pond over and over and over again? What's the best way for us to get those advertisements in front of non-bike racers?
In front of non-bike racers.
I did that with Facebook. So we're all looking for more entries. Very few of us are surviving off sponsorship dollars. It's not even my race, still run off entries. But for my race to turn the corner, I need more people from Northampton to bring their families out and watch the bike race. And so part of what we spent money on with Facebook was reaching non-cyclists, trying to increase our crowd, get our crowds big. We're trying not just to run a bike race now, right? We want to run an event. And then hopefully get sponsorship dollars, not just entry fee dollars. I still need all that entry fee money, but so your local chamber of commerce is a great place to go, and just strategize with them. They may want to get involved with your event. One of the things that I lost when I moved away from Northampton was bumping into other business owners on the street, and that was turning into sponsorship. So trying to turn that stuff into sponsorship dollars, I think, is Chamber of Commerce was always super helpful for me here when I lived here, so I check in with stuff like that. But I did use Facebook to try to reach local residents and maybe even families with kids to just come up for the kids race. This is one of the first years where I observed people from outside the bike racing ecosphere who brought their kids to your kids races. So I somehow reached those people finally.
I know Kim has a question, but I didn't want to just follow up what you were saying, because you had to do this before people were more digital and everything. Did you have a flyer with you when you were talking about these businesses?
Yeah, we actually have a non-bike racer oriented poster.
Okay.
That went up in all the businesses in Northampton and East Hampton and schools. We've targeted the schools and we've targeted the schools. So our marketing within our venues region is not towards bike racers.
Okay. So to wrap up your point that you were talking with there, like, I was almost going to do this like food presentation in front of everyone, just highlighting that you need to use different tools and a variety of tools, and you also need to present it differently to everyone. Because if you want non-bike racers, I would almost recommend Reddit, because I know you're on Reddit, and they're trying to talk with people that are enjoying their biking, and some of them never raced. And that could also be like another market you want to get into and say, hey, this is where I'm posting YouTube clips of the race. You're getting people excited about that. They might be training, they might not be racing. And you have to curate the content a little bit depending on what you need. And one thing which is always a big one that I've noticed is you have to change your language a little bit. Like talking about a course that's going to kill you, that's too challenging. You can't advertise that. Yeah, I'm sure, yeah. Kim, your hand up?
Yeah, I actually have more of a comment. So with Facebook, if you are just if you're just doing posts and expecting people that like your post or follow you to see it, the way that Facebook algorithms work, that doesn't always happen. The way that it prioritizes it is sometimes if you're a business, even people that like your post or like your page and follow you will not see that post. You sometimes have to spend even a little bit of money to even get the people that follow you to see your posts. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if you want to get out of the same audience and get different people than the usual bike racers to see, Facebook is super awesome at being able to target whatever you want. I can target age groups, gender, interests. So if you decide for some reason that people who like to downhill ski might like to downhill mountain bike, you can target skiers with your ads for your race. So it's super easy to use, super cheap, very targeted. You can target geographically. I can't emphasize that enough. Even just, like I said, even if you have to ski, but you have to ski and spend money to target people that like to ski, they actually see it.
But you literally might only have to spend $5.
Yes, yes.
It is scary.
We're doing that with so we have a swapping coming up in February, and I've got two ad campaigns running just to sort of get test them, and the one that's non-endemic is doing much better. So we're going after like ski communities, non-cyclist communities, with just a little bit of flavor that crosses over.
On what platform?
When I say non-cyclists, I mean non-racing. On Facebook.
On Facebook, right. So that's the thing where, again, it's important to recognize that if you don't have a Facebook page, that's almost like, again, it's that bare minimum. And I know there are some events that don't. And I know it's a lot of extra work, and you can automate this. Sometimes it's paying for it. Sometimes there are a lot of free apps out there. And I mean, I'm hesitant about Facebook because it actually, if you read the news about Facebook, I do try and follow a lot of tech news, and it's actually hard to appreciate is that being dictated, so to speak.
So, here's that TikTok and how to utilize it. You know, every kid in our program, not every kid, but a lot of our kids are on TikTok. We talk about TikTok, we put videos, and I'm trying to figure out how we can use that. We're planning to do a lot more fun videos, you know, with benefit, and all the races we have in competition. And this TikTok we're having that is like YouTube.
So the biggest thing that I think, honestly, is you do need to do a lot of that advertising up front. It has to be out in advance. And honestly, you have to use a reasonable number of tools right here. That's really the biggest thing I was going with. And this whole kitchen metaphor that I had, in order to create this, is you can't just make a meal with only one tool here. Like, we do tend to fixate a lot on bike reg. Again, it's very useful, but if we're worried about the race's longevity and we're only using that as an option, that's part of it. I think the biggest thing for me, when you look at all the different social media platforms that we have, is as long as you have a spread, that's typically the best thing that you have right there. You also have to make it organized in a way that works out well. A website's pretty good. We also have bike reg as an opportunity. There's one app on here, I'm just kind of curious, and again, I wanted to, this is doing exactly what I want for this presentation, is talking about different ideas that people had. How many people have heard of Linktree?
What?
Linktree. So there are a couple other apps that are like that. Sometimes it's Link Bio is another one, but if we're talking about wanting to have quick information to give to everyone, this is the one that I'm probably going to recommend moving forward, is number of free apps. You can get a URL. And if you go to that URL, you can actually put in a number of links and label each one as a button. So I have a personal one, and it has my website, has the races I'm attending, and has the most interesting thing that I'm reading coming up. It's very easy to adjust that. And if you're going out to businesses and you could say, well, what's the information about your race? You have to give them something. Maybe you have a dedicated non-race flyer. And that's how you do it with that digital. And now you just tell people go to linktree.com/CCAP. And that would be that opportunity where you say, click the business owners one, and you can see our flyer that we have for that. And they can also go through the rest of that information. And thinking about the TikTok one, I'd almost say if you were to employ something like Linktree, have a link that goes to the TikTok account for that right there. Yep.
I wonder if you can comment on the distinction between like quality and quantity. I mean, I will say sort of as there are a lot of times where I think folks are like, I gotta have a Facebook page or bike reg page. You go in and you see like one icon, the banner is blank. There's very little in the event notes. There's not, and I have to say, I personally as a racer, I'm a little turned off by that event. If I don't know something else about that, coming, I was away from New England for a long time, coming back here, I don't always know a lot of the history behind these events, but I find like a lot of them that are pretty well established, in particular, are the ones that sort of do that. I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes here, but just offer the impression that sometimes I see that. I have to tell you, it makes me think twice about the event. Like, okay, is this going to be indicative of a poor organization? Is this really a small event? Is this really something I want to do? So I guess that's what I'm wondering. Like, if it's worth, how much should we be spending time on, sort of carpet bombing in every type of social media versus focusing, putting together a really tight and nice product?
Can I have a response to you? So,
I'll get to your point in a moment.
Yeah, I'm a commercial photographer and I work in advertising. The
Okay.
bottom line is that you're not going to change people's habits. So you can't force them to go on a new platform, which is why I'm kind of, bike reg does a nice job, being able to have information on there, which most races is enough space, we put artwork and everything. You have to be available on all platforms.
Yes, and what
Because
bike
you're
reg
not going to show people's habits. So Instagram's, and Zuckerberg knows this, and that's why when you post something on Instagram, you can share it to Facebook, you can share it to Twitter. So it's an easy gateway to get into it. So, That's the only thing I'll say to that, just from a general like outreach and marketing, like outside of like just general advertising.
But all these other tools still have to get the person to go to bike coach.
What's that?
All these tools still have to get the user to go to bike coach.
Well, you're always
You're
gonna
not gonna have the
have.
pre-reg, you're not gonna have the money, you're not gonna know who's showing up, you're not gonna issue the bid numbers. You've gotta have one tool for managing.
Right,
the
but there's
race.
also only one place for them to register, of course, so of course the goal would be to get them to bike reg, which would also get them to look at other events that are happening, especially if they're gonna leave New England. I mean, look at, the one thing I was gonna say, I just mentioned it now, is like, Peru, Vermont had the RAS gravel ride, which I did a few years back. It was small, and then Pete from Vermont Overland was like, I'm gonna support you. So he showed up one year, brought Ansel Dickey with him, and like literally he went from, I think the first year was 50 riders, and it was just like a mass start one category, and then he had like 300 the next year. And then after that, I can't remember, but there's another race on the following Sunday that we're gonna do this weekend together. A lot of it too is just everybody kind of, for New England promoters, there's not a lot of people in this room, so there's also the concept that just to support each other. And college trying to do a good job of making sure dates are not overlapping, keep some certain distance. So I mean, that's a big thing too, just talk to each other.
Well, that's the summit that we have here, and it's also hard because I don't think we've ever talked before, and I don't know how to get in touch with you. So that's another reason why you have to be online in a fashion, so that way you can it can be accessible and say, hey, can you tell people to come with here? And as a side note about Peter Ballers, one thing if you think about it, what's his best tool to have right there? It's Ansel Dickey. It is YouTube, and that's like the amount of work that he's doing additionally. And for budgeting, it's one thing to set aside money as a Facebook ad, but you also might want to think about bringing in a dedicated expert that knows how to do it. I should have put this slide up earlier because I do want to clarify that I'm not saying everybody has to do the same app. Not everyone has to do the exact same strategy. This is not the only way to do it. And I think there are, I don't know, I think last year when we had D2R2, we were talking about how the total number of licensed NEBRA racers, D2R2 had 2 or 3 times that number, and most of them don't race bikes. That's one thing that narrative-wise, I think it really does have to change, and JD also touched upon that, is you have to consider drawing from a larger pool. There are lots of people out there that want to race bikes. We've had a number in here previously that I love thinking about whenever I promote events, about the average lifespan of a racer is about 3 years, and they do about 4 to 6 events a year. So one thing that you could think about that might be wrong, but honestly, I would say that is something that I've noticed a lot is people kind of fall in and out of the sport, and expecting your revenue base to be just like people that will do 50 races a year is hard. So a lot of that advertising that you can do, you might want to think about it being something tailored to just the few races somebody does per year, especially if we started raising reg fees, making it seem like a more exclusive experience.
Okay. I just want to ask you something now 2 slides ago.
Yep.
Yeah, that in the box in the upper right. So are you saying that because the registration trends are, say, let's be generous, in the last week, that you should target your advertising in the last week?
You want an official record for this?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
You want an official record for this? 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks.
Totally disagree.
I understand that you have different strategies.
Agency market.
You should still advertise a long period out. I'm not saying there should be 0
What's your
advertising.
Who are you going after? A new acquisition or an existing acquisition?
Which is
an existing client.
Well, also,
We only go for, our problem is we don't bring new people in our sport. What you're saying is just only focus on the existing ones we have.
no. What I'm saying is that you have to make yourself available to everyone, which is being on all these platforms. And as far as the length of advertising, in a certain sense, you should be advertising year-round. But I also know that's a lot of energy, and I didn't want to. That's why I have the other slide saying this is not how you promote. Everybody can do their way, but there does need to be a concentrated effort to do it more often.
So your frequency should go up.
Your frequency, yeah, that's my opinion, misphrasing that.
Richard, you're also raising a question, I was gonna talk about this a little bit later too. Who is responsible for growing the number of participants in the sport? So as race organizers, we focus on the business that already exists. I think often at the expense of the business that doesn't. This is why you have 10 masters fields and no Cat 4 women's field. You're chasing the business that already exists while the business that you don't have is going away because you're not a
accommodating it, and that's tough enough to crack.
That's the whole thing that I'm doing.
Well, that's right, because is that club, does it happen at club level, is it at coaching level? What responsibility do we as organizers have to grow the business that doesn't currently exist? And so you kind of just hit on that, and I think I'm interpreting what Ben's saying is, he is talking about the business that already exists in those last
That I
2
don't
days.
need to be.
He's trying to drive turnout from the pool that already exists, right?
And it's also like not being intimidated by doing this because, again, like when you think about these numbers and the business involved, it's tough. And yes, thank you for clarifying, it is increasing advertising. Honestly, again, you can be promoting year round. But as far as the frequency, it's the 2 weeks now.
Okay, I
agree. Okay. Well, I can think of it again. Let us know. And there was another thing we were talking about in here about the nature of how you're promoting and advertising, and again with carpet bombing and also the attitude you have towards it. And to be perfectly honest, if I'm looking at the average age in this room, I'm guessing that social media is just not what people would prefer. So again, that's just the idea that you don't have to be somebody advertising yourself and like worried about like your self-appreciation they have on it. Is this post going to get likes? There does need to be almost a professional detachment when you're doing this, that you do need to present it to everyone. Because again, this is for new acquisitions, current acquisitions. In a lot of ways, when we have these events, again, Bike Reg has made it very simple that you could just have one platform that you can have everyone go towards, but you still need to you need to funnel it in another way. Maybe you have a lot of YouTube commenters, maybe a lot of people hanging out on Reddit. So that's that tough thing where we kind of fixate on a couple of different platforms like Twitter and Bike Reg, then it does have that idea that it's only current acquisitions, but you need to have new ones as well. You need to put out as much as you have out there.
So you're taking like a Malcolm Gladwell discussion on a connector or even, there's certain people who are more than others.
No,
You just
definitely.
said Ansel Dickey, like, boom, get him, or Peter Ball, boom.
Well, the other thing I would point out is, again, like the discussion of like what people are comfortable utilizing in this room.
Okay.
I mean, I said Ansel Dickey in the sense of, I don't know how to use YouTube.
You could have said Tom Parsons.
Well, or,
Like Tom is a service.
Right.
or, yeah.
So bringing in specialists in that sense. I'm not saying, you're saying targeted before?
Well, there's certain mavens that obviously if one person, if Adam says something really nice on Twitter, it goes a long way. His numbers are bigger. He's a connector. A lot of people are perfectly nice people, but they just don't have the impact. So I was just commenting on that. There's a way to do it.
I would recommend as a counterpoint to that, like not a counterpoint, a way to bolster that is more people should be online so that way they can help with that. Because as one way to think about it is both Tom and Ansel, neither of them are on Twitter. They have very active other social media platforms, but like that means that they can do as they like.
Okay.
But again, you can also have like more people to bring on. Maybe the maven that you need, they don't have a website.
Right.
Which is again, more the point of how do you get in touch with them and how do we also, and we're thinking also collectively as a group, how to bolster everything. We need to have something so that way we can say, well, you should find Adam. What's the best way to reach out to Adam? And then you can either give that information that you have there.
Okay. It's a good presentation. It's a good discussion.
Right. And this is one of the things, the reason why I wanted to do the food example is, again, we kind of talk about like trying to get a piece of the pie and be able to like encourage people to come out and eat. And a large thing I was thinking about this is somebody online had this comparison about when we promote, we know that people are going to come and we have to purchase supplies ahead of time. We have to prepare it in some way and advertise. Food businesses are a lot like that. Everybody knows that you come at lunchtime, but you still have to, you don't wait until the last possible second to buy the food ingredients and start preparing them together. You have to do some planning in advance. So I think we're pretty close to wrapping up in time, but I did want to kind of highlight how you do advertising strategies. And the first one I had right here, it's the idea that you have just a very, trying to think of the nice words to talk about grapple events right now. Just like a very intensive process event for people to do. And there's a lot of prep work involved. Like I don't even want to imagine what SBT's budget is like for this, but that's part of the reason why that they have a website, they have a Facebook page, they have an Instagram, they have a Strava club, so that way they can get people very excited and say like, yes, I'm like marking my calendar, so that way I can come and do this. So it's kind of the nature of the event that you have, and that's another reason to, another point to the carpet bombing idea. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you have to recognize what your audience is like and what they're doing. And for gravel currently, you can almost say it's a lot of people, because it's unknown, they're trying to figure out together which are the best ways to do things. And there's some Reddit presence for gravel. It's not a big one. It does seem to be mostly Instagram because people are trying to find good shots out that way. So SBT's Instagram, that's one that they have a lot of information on. So again, if you want to have a junior focused event, maybe you should just do more in TikTok, but if you have a criterium day that has mostly masters categories, you don't have to go on TikTok as much then. I mean, we're laughing about it, but like each time that we talk about like getting more and more juniors into the sport, like we have to go where they are. And if they're not on Instagram, they're not on Facebook, they're somewhere. And that's where you have to put the advertising for. Putting money, I think, towards advertising is good, but I'm also a fan of free. And if they're on the platform that's free already, it's just a matter of directing it there. And again, you can have different tools. Linktree and Linkbio, again, those are probably the ones that I'm going to be using more, just in the sense of if you put that in, and it's something simple for people to type in, they'll be able to put that in any browser. And again, it's sometimes the nature of the event. The second one they have right here, again, these are kind of weird metaphors, but it helps brainstorm the advertising you can have. I was thinking of a food truck festival where you have lots of different events happening together. And the idea to encourage people to buy in completely in one go. I'm pretty sure for Intelligentsia, they have a flat fee that you can pay upfront to attend all the races. You can also pick and choose as you'd like. So that's something where, as another promoting idea, another way of doing an event is collaborate together as a series. I know it's very difficult on Bike Reg to follow through with that exactly.
The biggest difference is that Intelligentsia is one bank account or one promoter.
It is one promoter?
Yes, I mean, at the financial level, at the organizational level, yes.
It's why we don't do a series, because in the Victoria series, it's 4 different or 3 different organizers, all with their own budgets, and I call it's a federation model, whereas something like Intelligentsia, it's centralized.
Dictatorship.
It's one organizer who owns all the events, so all that money comes into one place. We've also done the Food Truck Festival.
Right, and actually, like, I want to pick examples that are kind of out of New England, but like the first thought when I was thinking of that as an example would be New England Creek. Is the idea of just advertising, get to pick and choose different flavors that you'd like for everyone, and maybe finding some way to unify them to one topic. You do have a website for that, right? Yeah. So that's again those sort of things where does the CT series have a one dedicated website?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So that's exactly that bit that you want right there. And the last one before everyone goes to lunch that I wanted to talk about as an idea of how you get more people into the sport is like, again, the tone of the advertising that you have is you want to make it like more welcoming, more open for people, and making more opportunities, maybe additionally, not just selling a race, but also celebrating training clinics. So this was another one I found out is San Diego's Velodrome. On Bike Reg, they had a series of races clinics that you could attend. And it basically after that encouraged you should also come to our weekly races. So maybe for some events, NEBRA actually has a weekly series, right? Yeah. During the summertime? Right, so what's the best way to find that information? So it's Facebook?
They have Facebook.
Yeah,
Facebook. They call them because sometimes they cancel it and then it's on Facebook.
These were the issues that happened with WellsAd, which is why WellsAd tanked, and we made a decision based on our own we were in the area, our own personal desire was to be able to race at Wells, but if we were getting there, doing all the prep to get to a race, and then they go, no, we don't have enough people, we're going to cancel. It's pain, right? Like no one wants to do that. So we dedicated set times, set dates to sort that out and got the word out really, really early. So everyone knew when our races were scheduled. But definitely it's important, I think, with training races in particular, you've got to stick to your dates.
And that's
Don't just keep canceling races all the time.
Well, NDX doesn't, there's no pre-reg, so no one has, there's no deep skin in the game.
Well,
Just
we
like
do
you just,
have-
it's on Facebook, it's happening this Wednesday or the weather's
Yeah.
lousy, you just don't show
Yeah,
up.
Wells was the
we-
same.
Wells was exactly the same. We only put it on bike reg because some people said, oh, you know, that'd be easy because then I don't have to worry about carrying cash, because a lot of our riders ride to Wells. And then some, I mean, we still have a good majority that drive, but some were riding to Wells and didn't want the hassle of having to bring cash with them. And so we offered it this year last year for the first time, and it was resounding success with the amount of people that pre-reg. So it's just an interesting way, because then we knew we were going to have to hold the race with 3 people registered. Like, that's it.
To follow up with that, we also saw something very similar when we put our race series, Hampshire Motor Speedway on bike reg.
Yeah.
Biggest uptick right there was both having a series pass and a weekly one as a reminder for people. They
We
might
did
be
the same thing.
right, and that's a thing where maybe for NEBRA, for their weekly series, I know that there are fees involved and it's more work. But that's the idea. If you wanted to boost that, that's also a way to encourage people to come to the actual big USAC race. It's sort of that, again, those are lots of feeders into advertising into the one big thing. You have to have almost like you have to have a portfolio of advertising. And if you have the bandwidth, you almost want to have a portfolio of different events to bring in for people. For collegiate cycling, I know one of our biggest draws is we had a free how to run a clinic. And after that, people were kind of willing to commit that. It's hard to comment on what the actual money situation is, but that's the idea that you have to at least present that first option, and you can't force them to choose, but at least it's there. And if you have a capture rate of, I don't know, let's say 25%, we host a clinic and 25% of people came in, that's absolutely worthwhile. Like PBB1, that was an interesting example that I saw, that they have a website, but it's not actively used. And I don't know how much additional advertising that they do. And that almost might be something that they'd want to consider if they want to bring in more people and have that sort of easy, like somebody in high school says, well, I have a bike and I'm willing to give this a try. But again, they have to have something available to do that. So they have a website, which is a good start.
Well, I think Donnie Green had a total shoestring budget and no time.
Right.
I think it was helpful.
So that's more things that are involved with that, which I hope I've touched enough upon here is maybe he should delegate a little bit more. Maybe that there are free tools out there and you can automate for a bit.
I just don't think Donnie has anyone to delegate to. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the point
tough
taken,
part.
but we could talk about that specific situation.
Yeah, that's
We could spend an hour talking about one DVD and why we should always send him the money, but.
right. And again, that's
Wednesday night.
we're about at lunchtime. So that's about all that I have for the most part. I've been getting some emails during this presentation, so I'll be about if people have more questions. But did anyone have thoughts in particular that they want to share before we break for lunch?
What I will say is, we ran Wells the very first time, and honestly, we just reached out through all social media platforms and asked people to give us their desires. What did they want? And we just kind of listened to the local riders. It's a local race event, right? Like, this is for the locals. What do the locals want? And it was interesting to pull that information. Most people wanted what we already thought we wanted. So it was fairly easy. Sorry?
Red Bones history.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's just, it's the silliest things, but it is interesting to hear what people, wanted. And it was, and they didn't care about what fee we charged. There were certain things they cared about, and that's it.
What were the key things that people felt needed to be changed from the old
Honestly,
Wells out?
pre-reg on bike reg was a resounding,
That was the number one thing.
please.
Interesting.
And giving a fixed date to when we were holding our events, and guaranteeing that we would still hold the events even if only 5 people turned up. And so we would have to then wear the cost of police detail and everything else that goes into putting wells ad on. It's not.
It's a lot more commitment. What do you think about NEBRA?
No, but.
He just shows up on Wednesday night, stands in the starter shack.
So he's kind of.
Shows up.
Yeah, so he's kind of lucky.
Super easy.
We had a little more
Yeah.
to deal with, but honestly, most people just really liked the structure. It was more about turning up and the race being cancelled was really frustrating to most people. So, we really polled the locals using social media.
Right. And
Which helps, I think.
just randomly curious, because Wells Ave, because they're online right now, they're building up a bank of information. A lot of times in advertising and sales, we talk about like emails, kind of sharing leads that way. Does Wells, I haven't registered for Wells Ave on Bike Ridge yet.
No.
Do you guys send out email updates to them?
I think we do, but this is only going to be our second year, so I don't think we've even looked at the total calendar yet, because we really wanted to make sure that the NEBRA calendar was more or less set, so that we didn't hold a race that conflicted with somebody else's race. And so you will probably see Bike Ridge go up in the next probably 2 weeks.
But the biggest thing I wanted to say is, are you sending emails out? Do people know about the back end of Bike Ridge, that you
Yeah.
send emails to them?
I think they
Yeah.
will, but that's not my.
Oh, yeah, no, which is fine.
I
We get that.
handed that off to other people, which I was lucky enough to find someone else take that on, but certainly I think that's a useful tool.
And that's the biggest takeaway that I hope people have for this presentation, is the idea that there are free tools out there, so to speak.
Right.
And if you're not familiar with it as much, it's possible to find and delegate. And putting more than information in the digital space out there is your best bet for advertising.
Right.
As well as there's a time where just word of mouth was enough.
Yeah.
But now you want to have something where people can
It's not
share.
enough, no, it definitely isn't.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
So, this across the hall, we should have just about something for anyone. If you have specific dietary needs, questions, come see me. And we'll be back here in an hour.
If you can't find the men's room, it's all the way down past the DMV. Yeah. Oh, it's just all gender now? Okay. That's fine. I guess. Yes, I've done this. No one, probably the you can find it on that college. And you can find some people. If you're going to you can't so like it's not the experience. I don't know, I guess. Oh, yeah. They're all trying to, they're all not trying to, but they're all very well trying. You wouldn't have had a reason.
One race. Roads are your numbers. You've seen that. Yeah. So we have two.
Yeah.
We have 50, 60.
I think everybody is really curious about. Yeah, everybody else is
It's not easy to. I feel like I'm getting bad news.
Right, well, yeah, just maybe that was kind of my question.
But at the same time, I think, what do you guys do really? I mean, long term here. These are the good
To say last year, right?
So far. In this year, yes, we are, so.
And yeah, I think it's long term.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's just like this year, but I think New England's pretty good. New races are really Hartford doesn't have to take a long way. So, right.
Yes.
And what shuttle wall it's not a region.
Yeah. The year before they just. That's what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Long term, I think.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Some of those emergencies.
Simply
Surveying small populations. So the council reported this.
How they found out, they're basically, two yeah, I think all geography is involved.
What's going on there? What's going on with the calendar?
Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't even.
You're right, like,
It's actually more, so that's all.
And then it goes a lot to.
Yeah.
So limited.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, size-wise, really.
Are there?
Exactly. And I was, we couldn't, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, it's,
Yeah.
this is one of the key reasons is because you'll appreciate this. I'll back your website, but Textbro, this is a very minimal website.
Yep.
And they haven't had a functional website in over 2 years. Their last calendar update was 2017.
So they don't even manage calendar, which is kind of like it's kind of like the one thing that you almost need from local living.
Yeah. So what we're doing there is we toss the board and say, look, there's expectation. If we're going to pay you money, then we want you to do something. And NEBRA does that.
Yes, sure.
And there are good associations that do that. But I mean, we have some. I've got 2 right now that have lost their nonprofit status.
For why? Just like not found reports.
Just not following it. And I'm easy. How crazy is that?
I mean, I did. It wasn't my favorite thing I did this year, but like it wasn't that hard.
No, that's not hard at all. But they did do it. They lost their
You have to do it 3 years in a row too.
Yeah, you don't do it. If you miss any one of the 3 years, then you can't lose it.
Yeah, like you don't automatically lose it. You guys 3 times in a row.
So,
Okay, so
and they're starting to get a little more strict with that, but that's it. We've got good associations, and we've got good.
so what's the future of a region with a disbanded local association?
So for what we're looking at now, we've got one board member who was heavily involved. He was actually the only one who did really anything there. You're fine. But the official assignments. But Andrew's going to take over the official assignments.
So
And manage the calendar in conjunction with working with us directly.
So is that basically a direct employee of you as a site or like contract? Point is, you're just hiring someone. So that's, I mean, so in a way, he's local system.
Until if there is a group of people, so just a guy like there would have people.
Yeah.
Just
How many people are on board?
they have.
But like collectively, I guess, I know like it does take some work to like keep people engaged. I can see if you like lost that like engagement, that then all of a sudden you wouldn't have it.
Yeah, you listen, well, you definitely, I think one of the big things we've seen is that in areas where one person is trying to take the control over it. Yeah. So it's not, once that person gets burned out.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's
we've seen that happen quite a bit as things have shifted. So
Again, I think that's always been one of the issues with local associations. They tend to, as volunteer organizations, they tend to be run by people who have a particular interest, right? And when that interest, whether it's somebody who's hyper-official focused or hyper-race focused, once the human being factor comes in, somebody loses their job or changes, right? Their life.
Yeah, like I said, you got with a single part there. I thought a really good thing you brought up was succession models.
Yeah.
And it's a problem. I have a big problem with that. That's because they don't have behind them as much, so it's harder to give it away or have it win. I feel like at least with Greenfield organizations, there's so much ownership from B2C2, although I know it's like also Lydia. But there's if you said I'm not doing Greenfield this year, guys, there's a group of people that wouldn't make it happen. So some year you're gonna say that doesn't work.
Yeah, but and that you're spot on. We've seen this. I mean, I brought in Jeff Ross because Tucson Bicycle Classic, they were pulling the plug in Arizona. The club said we're done. But they waited. They didn't really reach out to people.
Right.
They just sent out a mass email saying, "Hey, we're done." And I was like, well, "Why? What are the reasons?" It's well, we can't get volunteers, but we can't do sponsorship stuff. Like, you've got one of the biggest organizers in the U.S. in your backyard in Arizona. Let's reach out to them and see if we can pick it up with a little help and support.
you wouldn't be on the phone for going forward. But yeah,
This came from Michael Kahn at the ethics.
what?
The idea of succession.
Right.
He's like, hey, I just went through this experience where I got in the car the week before my race, like I did everything for.
Right.
It's like, and now and he puts on like 5 or 6 races a year. And he's like, wow, I got to start thinking about this because.
You realize that you're the single part failure of like every part of your event. And even if you don't want to stop doing it, you might have to stop doing it. I've thought about that like more than once. Like what would happen if I like crashed my bike like racing the weekend? Yeah. Like I don't know, people doesn't happen.
And short term, our community here is pretty good about, pitching and coming together, but, what happens if you have tried races like this? Or,
Yep.
So one thing we did for NEBRA this last year was we added we have terminals now on board, which I think is a really good idea to force people to leave and for people to come in. I don't think there's been any like NEBRA board member who is like super engaged by like their 6th year. So like we have now anyone can do 3 terminals, which is good. But like definitely don't want to like I think anything structural that prevents that for sure is like guys.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is I think NEBRA does this, but it's like with the board, you just elect representatives, and then you go into the session like fully correct.
So, I mean, with the clubs, we have 40-ish clubs that vote on board members. So that's something that's.
And then you go and select, the board needs to, you're gonna be president.
Yeah, yes, yeah, and then.
everybody gets together.
Everyone's
I don't want to do it.
jumping up for that.
I don't want to come and do it.
Yeah, well, luckily we had a 3-year term on our presidency, so I only have, 2 years. Unless I don't get reelected. Like, I dare you. Dare you guys not get.
Yeah, that's, that's one of the biggest, a lot of the LAs, when the bylaws were constructed, everybody has a different organization model.
Super different. It's always for me to talk to other LAs about how to work. Yeah, NEBRA's like, we have 1 million people, whatever, and no one gets paid for anything. I can't tell if that's genius or idiotic. It seems to work for them. Now,
Well,
they say now.
Yeah, the challenge is they've been very fortunate to have people, they have so many officials that are willing to do a lot of actual, admin work. And so like Jim passes like the official society since the convention, I appreciate that, and he's probably never said that too. And,
So is there a succession plan for him?
no, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, now they're probably does because I guess we need to kind of step back and help Jim with that. But the board is hands off on the admin stuff. They just focus on.
So how does the admin stuff, how's that happen?
It's all, it's just these people giving their time. When they say they're done, you have a succession plan in place. So, this is one of the things, once we get past a lot of these changes, my goal is to focus on more the overall structure of each group and then also help create that, or at least get them thinking about what are we going to do when we're done with this? Because it's very similar to like collegiate science.
Right.
You leave a collegiate program, what have you left behind? Where's the knowledge base? Where the people that.
Except collegiates, like by default, if they're 4 years, like they from the beginning always had to have this like something passed on the club. Like I was in the college conference scheme, but like same thing where you're always rolling over and they're just like collecting knowledge. Stay around. So as far as like, is there any documentation on what kind of goals USS like has for local association or remnants of them, or like whatever we're becoming?
Yeah.
I feel like we do what we think is important, mostly agree on that, but like, I don't feel like we get like a lot of, like, I feel like there's like the contract, like, what did we do previously, it's like that, was the administration, now we do it. So now they're like, we don't do that, like, what's the contract look like? You know, like, what if, like, there's no job description anymore, except like, what, use your best judgment.
Yeah, within the next month, so there's, documents that we'll actually be able to do like this, for lack of better terms, it's an evaluation of the LA, but also really it's trying to drive more of the growth mechanisms of the work. And that's what we're really trying to turn this eventually, get the program turned into where NEBRA will be more for support and growth of an increased membership base that hopefully the new membership model that comes out here. And I think
I think it's a step in the right direction, for sure. Changing structure is only changing structure.
yeah, and this is like a, you know, I hate to say it, this year's kind of it's nothing more, it's a transition. It's not a permanent path of the program. I think we're going to see more change. I don't think it, you know, I know everybody is nervous about this program. And that it's, you know, like you said, it's sunset. Yeah, sunset. So, yeah, it's being reimagined, but I think this is, you know, I think when we look at how they went through it.
Good, man. He's 10 weeks. He sleeps like a champ.
I don't think that's
Life's good.
I don't know.
My wife's still on maternity leave.
history. Yeah. Well,
So
you gotta get back.
in good shape.
Initial.
What's new with you?
Was the fire.
Your kid finished high school this year? She got
Yeah,
17.
Right.
I've heard 5 pounds. Great. Agree that. You had local things break all the time. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had that time with my parents where I was like,
For me.
yeah.
Sit there,
Yeah.
recognize them as also bring them.
But we also. And the voices are more.
My time.
Yeah. The challenge was you're tasked with growing the sport and getting it all together. And go with it. And that takes away from the growth. It's not to say that
You guys are in a good area. We're not in the city.
it's other events.
Yeah.
They're actually trying to get engaged.
I got one in my daughter 10 years ago. My brother got hurt like 2 years in a row in the big sports. So it was something. We got her, like, doesn't walk
You know,
anymore.
there's not a
We
nurse.
took a bunch of classes. We got our local programs, we got our hunting licenses, we got our horse licenses, we got our boating licenses, you know, all on summer.
So it's really,
Another fun bike, and my wife was like, you get a bike, mom, it's really, you can't ride right on the road. It works, so really like. Yeah, so it's exposure. So,
hey, I'm gonna.
yeah, so I.
Right, how many times?
My dad rides, but he's in Florida. You're in Florida, it's like
Yeah.
congested.
And it takes a while, because you feel like you gotta.
Yeah, but you're gonna do that.
You look at it, I'm sure you know it in 5 seconds.
Like, or
Yeah.
just more like.
And then there's the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's
Really easy for it to get way.
people.
Yeah.
Watch the kilogram requests. Those, I don't even know if I.
Yeah, so it was,
When I get.
I like riding, but it's not like.
You should know.
Oh,
When you're 10 miles, that's when you're gonna ask.
Yeah.
I don't probably gonna get back to the track. Like, potentially, I think what the track is really.
Yep.
I don't think, so
Yeah.
I'm like,
I have a feeling that if you went to a race and outbreaks on a bank surface, maybe not the same as probably.
right, I'm like, I know who you are, I know the person you are. Just show you're not the register.
Oh, that kind of flash into it.
Not past certification.
Maybe that's not good. Or you don't mind the ball doing that?
My normal strategy is. This always happens, but I've always opportunities. So everyone else needs to be like involved. Sure.
Yeah,
I'm worried about really technical aptitude.
That's a better way to put it.
That's, you know, like, text me off more.
I don't know. Bike riding, that's almost unheard of.
That was part of the real reason this year, like, we're not holding anything.
That's some, like,
Like every 10
the
minutes.
bike race will have to go for like,
Like we catch it.
you know, go there, and you'll be like, okay, well, radar, you know, register. But there's like never any, yeah, it's working, it's always really, always like, it's fairly functional.
I know, but
And like, literally, there are times when we like, there aren't even directions.
I get it.
Yeah. It really like infuriates when you
Yeah. So I mean, like every time.
Yeah.
Like 4 times.
You ever, we used to have both, that's what you leave. It really is. It's like, almost like a scene that they, it's like, and came out around here. No, that's the ride. Yeah.
But yeah, that is, it's hard, it's not, you can always be 99% sure. If you ever, you ever get drawn, you can start the last one we serve.
I remember that the unattached driver thing.
Yep.
Yeah, where we had that participate for years, stage one, we throw money at like meetings, time clock. But they didn't show up and.
On your part.
Yeah, like we try to get pictures.
There's actually, over there. Super cheap. I think like, it's funny, you know, yeah, I got tricked into like, well, I mean, there you go, like that, that's nice. I think it was really sad. And then you said, what do you want to work? It was just well, I didn't realize it until afterwards.
One time that happened was, you're not going to be
so
no,
I knew this was not going to be real, but everyone's French roll. Which the bag at we have it with spike for pickled basically like, if they kind of unless you're trying to get the total states. Yeah, so you don't feel like your credit card gets so even though I know what's going to be a reason, they were like that. They should come back to a lot of kids, but so how do you pull that? What about those other credit cards? Like any friends. I'm not. So we're building. No, at this point we're thinking. Yeah. Oh, I saw it. I didn't know that.
Like 20 minutes, 40 minutes. So we have to push it up and down. Yeah. Is it a management? Yes. Okay. That's awesome to hear. Especially that time. Yeah. That's that. The car's like 17 years old. Right. We're going to start around that.
I know it. I wrote it.
And so, they dropped the ball. I had to do. But you dropped it off without stopping. Right. Yeah, that might be perfect. 2 years. I won't like it. Unless you want to go to a bike race. I mean, I got my life.
So my family team, I did and like they were hungry, they turned and we had we just so basically nothing else. And I think you know, if I did anything wrong, my legs were it's like whatever.
Now, that's the question. We had been, it was like a section, but not actually races. Categorized races where they would get, yes, exactly. You could, right?
Having like
What race?
yeah, like well, that mean. And
Generally, no, I've done it population. Very
what people try out.
So it's still in the section, it's not the same balance, still have insurance. They pay more money as grant.
Yeah. So,
No, it's, what you buy, but they have little kids, and grandma, granddad, mom, and dad, everyone, everyone, my wife was there, they changed the
Is it to actually,
there was a major argument you know what?
It's not great.
Yeah, I don't think.
Association International, and then now it's all. Everyone, we've never been, they have lemons on there.
When I went to the Atlas Summit, I should have put it in joint series.
Yeah.
I know it's reality.
Like 19 to 29-year-olds are passes. Passes get passes. All the like, passes, so you get your. I agree on this house. I struggle with
We've always. The challenges in reaching out to some of the titles that
Which unofficially, so usually what happens for me is, I don't know. I haven't needed the email. Yeah. But I'd like you to read. So, no, I haven't. I'm free. So usually right around now, I find like, but I haven't done that. So, like you mentioned about they don't have a problem. No, they don't. And part of what I have to yeah, that's probably the biggest. He doesn't take his knowledge. Yeah. I want to go to which is
Especially, because there's no situation where if you consider the president,
I'll bring it up.
You're okay. Yeah, okay. But if you take a left turn, that's in the racing scales. Riders are going to want to race. So like mechanics also. So then you have to mechanics here. Yeah. Well, yeah, right. So that's what
The space is always open. The space is always open. The space, I mean, it's always open. Like, what do they do for it? Oh, yes. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening.
Yes.
Why is it blurry? Is it because I walk the camera and there's no focus? Yeah. Other questions?
Good question.
Yeah. We usually do it by email, right? I am the closest thing there is to, at least I have been in your class.
I know Rich is one of those.
Right. Yeah, so that's.
We can talk after. You want to talk after?
Yeah.
Because I think we can, you've got my email, right?
Like a while ago?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
okay. I want to make sure that we don't.
Yeah, so we're gonna, so usually like, So I know there's, you're moving, right, like location and data.
No, we have lots of time.
Okay.
Let's get through it.
As always, it's not something.
I can move, I just can't move.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own constraints around them, so we're trying to get all these things.
I'm not sure.
And then we still don't have a UCI company.
Yes, we do. We'll know it next week if it, but it exists. I can tell you what. All right, everybody, we have a lot to get through. This will be interactive. I promise it will almost be fun. Please return to your seats.
Okay, so we're actually gonna ask everyone to pull out their phones for the next.
You can actually be on your phone and it's.
So up on the screen, there is a URL, www.ment.com, MENTI.com, and a code. If you go to their website, you'll be able to enter that code. We will do some real-time survey. It's completely anonymous, but it's a good way to start some discussion and get some of you guys some things we've already talked about today and some things we haven't yet touched on. So give everybody a chance to get logged on, let you know if you're having any troubles.
Computers as well.
I believe
You can,
yes. Yes. No one does it anymore. Speaking of computers, registration is well over 50% on mobile devices now. In case anybody's wondering about the state of the internet, we have to do everything for phones first now.
I run out of fight with you to make an app about the registry.
I don't want to talk about that right now. We're talking about the general state of racing. So, all right, we're going to assume everybody's using phone and website and get going. Lydia is the software expert. I'm just going to talk. I'm not the same person who talked earlier, but now my shirt is blue. I don't have to.
Does the states matter?
No, it'll just.
If I ask the young person,
I can
you
see
help
like
me
8 people are walking right now, so I'm gonna give it another minute or two, so there's only 8 people.
13-year-old girl keep on.
Yeah, right. It's fine. It's gonna find a child that needs their device.
All right,
Is that 8 participants or just 8 parts?
I'm not sure actually.
I thought you were a professional with this software.
Totally.
Okay.
All right, general thumbs up, people are looking at me, so I assume they're not working on the phones anymore. Okay, first question. Does Swift, this is our icebreaker, does Swift make people race outside more or less?
We'll give people 60 seconds to think about this situation. I'm still trying to figure out the
So I'm just.
Drive around.
Well, in general, it's like Swift,
I love
either
it.
net neutral or positive.
See, I didn't, we shouldn't even give people a chance to punt on this question. Only one person thinks it's bad for racing.
I had a friend who took up racing just because he did a race on Swift.
So you
I thought that was
Anecdotal
really
experience from
interesting.
starting on Swift racing outside.
Yeah, he had never raced outside.
How did this person find Swift as a recreation?
Well, he when I say he hasn't raced, he did the Mount Washington climb years and years and years, but he's like, I want to go crit now, I can run
He got into crit racing from
on this Swift. It's like, I thought it was strange.
The follow-up question, I think about Peloton.
All right, this was just a throwaway question.
Yeah, so that's not a throwaway question. I think it's really interesting.
All right, did you want to have a discussion about this
No,
one?
I don't.
All right.
I just, I still don't know on Swift.
All right, next question. This one you have to rank a few things. So thinking about all these things relative to one another, it's 2025, imagine 5 years from now, how popular each of the disciplines here, you can rank each one.
Yeah,
On a scale of-
Larry,
This is, wait.
Say it again?
like, I mean,
In New England.
In New England.
Yeah, we're generally talking about New England here.
Oh, you have to scroll on, right?
Make sure you push submit down the bottom.
So you can give multiple things the same rank.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So this isn't like out of 100. Things can be the same popularity if you want.
So everybody's been paying attention to the graphs. Shocking.
Well, but also we need that exalted. It's going to last. It's going to last another 5 years.
I also appreciate you breaking out some road races.
Yeah,
I think that's important.
Yeah, but it's just.
Who gave track more than a walk?
Yeah. Do you know something about a new village?
Well, been involved in really 15 years, so.
How many places can I race track?
One.
One. Is that road that old?
Or zero.
How many places can you ride around on a concrete surface on a track bike?
Race track. Do I have brakes and gears?
Can it count?
All right.
All right, so generally, we're all thinking gravel is still around in 5 years, and it's the most popular discipline of our disciplines right now. But what isn't on here is what discipline will emerge that we haven't even thought of yet.
The Zwift, that was the last thing. All right, so this has been a question as long as we've had cycling. And I want to know what promoters think. And I would love to ask this to Cat Vibes as well. But here's 3 questions about upgrades. Like I said, if you think the system is perfect, you vote right in the middle, right? It's not too hard, it's not too easy.
Yep.
This is cool. I'm in.
In a huge room, I bet it's really.
It's fascinating.
Will we,
It's so great.
can we get access to the final?
So the stuff afterwards,
Yeah.
yeah, we can download everything.
So this is interesting. People in general are pretty satisfied with status quo for upgrades.
People being
With,
a
sorry,
very small sample.
yes, sorry. So is it 26 votes or 26 people?
Yeah, 26 people have voted.
So I have 26 votes. People in general feel pretty neutral about having Colorado Springs do our upgrades, which is, I think, that's a very good data point for me personally. And then, is it hard to upgrade across or on the road? People slightly disagree. So, if anything, we're leaning toward upgrades or too lenient. And I would love to ask Cat Vibes what they think, because I think they would have totally different opinions. One thing we'll talk about later is US Slightly is making, you can auto upgrade yourself, right, to Cat. Right, you can anyway, the upgrade world is changing, so it's interesting to see what people think right now. Where they're either afraid to rock the boat or they're actually satisfied.
Is this about the process of upgrades, or is this about like earning your upgrade?
That's a great question.
So,
I don't know. I typed the sentence and y'all voted them. What question were you interpreting?
I think the first 2 are about how challenging it is to acquire points that you need to upgrade, and the second one, the last one's on process.
Okay, so I think it's fairly easy to do things you need. I'm not a great bike racer, but like to go from 5 to 4, you do 10 races, show up 10 times, and you upgrade. And then it's just.
But is that
and you upgrade? But I think that there are a lot of newer racers, and especially like having worked with some of the juniors, where they don't know how to upgrade, or the parents don't know how to upgrade because they didn't come from a bike racing background. So I think that getting that information consolidated and maybe more to the forefront, especially during cross season when the majority of these upgrades are happening, would be a huge bonus. I mean, I remember a couple years ago when I was working at CCAP, we had a junior in the program that was like 14 that was winning Cat 5 races by a minute or something. Had like 75 races and was still Cat 5. And I think what ended up happening, he got pushed up to a 3, and now he's maybe 2.
So was the actual situation that he didn't know how to upgrade or that he should upgrade?
That family named not upgrade. I think they were being lazy.
Okay, but that's a good point. It's like 2 racers. This might be an injury. Okay.
This is a topic that we've had discussions on in previous summits where I think certain groups can feel like it's really challenging to upgrade, and it can be, a way that people don't want to stay in the sport because they feel like they're making progress.
Right.
And so it probably differs a little bit.
What I see is 150. My Cat 4-5 race at 8 a.m. has 150 people in it each day, and I have lots of space in my Cat 3 men and women's field, and I have lots of space in my league fields. So chop that up differently so that I can make more money and people can stay in the sport.
So I think you'll see that those changes are.
That's what's coming.
Next year, I think one of the big things I did this fall with cyclocross in particular was really trying to push out the idea that you don't need 10 races for cyclocross. You only need 5 to go from a 5 to a 4. And we were very, very keen on getting people up. And 2 years ago, Colin ran a whole new point schedule for me, and that has worked incredibly well. So I think we've done much better about getting people up.
Is there gonna be anything to push out information? People let them know, hey, you paid your voluntary upgrade points. Hey, you paid your mandatory upgrade points. Please tell us why we shouldn't upgrade you right now. Like I can see in December somebody's fighting for a series, not being forced to upgrade. But
So,
Stuart might have an answer for you.
yeah, so long term, I think this is going to be tied in with a results rankings program that actually works for, talk about ours, not anybody else. So our ranking system, it would be much easier to explain and also automate. And so I don't think, one of the things that, I know JD's done it before, I had to do it for years for Bruce that didn't want to do it. There's nothing like telling somebody, hey, congrats, you maximized your ability to stay in this category, and that series you were competing in, well, that's out the window, but that's why if you're not pushing yourself, then it's not, there's fondness, there are other things to fit what you're looking for. So this is in the works. We will still have to email organizers, and we have a very strong watchdog group around the country that that is top notch, and they are the best at telling you that somebody's maximizing results. So anytime you see those, we look into it and deal on it. Katie's done it. We deal with it and get the push up. So.
One last thing, JD, how many course upgrades this fall? I know at one point we had.
I didn't actually pull a number, but I was averaging double digits there for a while.
Per week during cross
season. The very beginning of cross season, we spent a lot of time in the category initially, and then after the first few races, we've been really trying to push people up. Colin was kind enough to create a points calculator for us. That's really
easier time. So would you say that's been a change from years past in terms of actual course upgrades?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to get people back up to cat 3 because there's been a real dip, especially for cross the cat 3 population. Everybody's letting the shingle more back. So
the part of the process was first identifying people who appear to have too many points, then figuring out whether they actually have those points. We end up with a lot of junior kids who end up with tons of upgrade points from 20-minute junior races. It's not really reflective of their actual ability. So then we sort of have to parse out whether they're getting points in senior races. And I think we've worked that process really well to the point where I think you're going to see the nationwide process get a lot easier going forward, and it's going to be a lot more streamlined.
That was
spoil any of them.
Yeah, exactly. We can still talk about this. So let's move on to some heavier questions of what is hard about getting into bike racing. Here's
to ramp it up. So when there's a drop down and you order them the way you want them to. For sport total.
This is actually pretty hard to think about. It might not be a 60-second response.
Yeah, so Lydia, I'm only getting
if you select the first one, the next one pops up.
As soon as you select the first one, you'll get the next one.
Oh, I see. Choose the one you want, and then you go there.
What if I did submit before I was done with you?
You refresh it.
So sad for you.
I only ordered my first column.
Just refresh it, it's the same thing.
Oh, really? If you just reload the page, you can go again.
Yeah.
Am I stacking them all to Algots now?
You are.
I'd like all four. 3 units.
I don't agree with this. at all.
Well, they're all good, they're all really good points though.
They are.
It's all four.
Right.
You don't,
Well, it's funny because the top one is one we have the most control over, so.
No, that's not to the rider who's intimidated. They just feel so great.
so I think that if we can be trusted, which is always the big question, when you have a group with like very narrow variety in it. It seems like this is both the club system and group cycling and CCAP and in general, like, it's really scary to go to something and they've never done before. And yeah.
I would say that
Like,
this is probably considering the pool of people who already have like, I think that the third one that's ranked third about equipment is actually probably the highest barrier for like general population. Like most people don't have a bike they can race on.
True.
So, just as like, I don't have like, but we actually did a survey for women racers, a couple years ago, but basically asked these questions like why, what are your hesitations about getting into bike racing? And it was crashing, I think was number one, and then intimidating would have been number two, and then the information. We may have had more selection, but crashing and the social aspect was higher for women generally.
I think you make the assumption here that you're talking about young racers. You know, if you look at the people getting into the sport or running or other sports, generally they're masters age racers. So that changes the outlook.
For sure. Yeah.
They've got the money. They
So
probably
do you
own a
think
good
there's
bike.
other
They've
things
never
that should be on this list that aren't there? Like what are those things that are keeping masters racers?
I think you should clarify the age group. I think if you put juniors up here and then you put masters up here, you do two totally different sets of answers.
So, Ben, since we're here talking about it, what's your answer on masters? Because we can't run the question, so.
Masters usually it's probably your fourth one there, you're crashing, but also I'm going to go bike race for the way when I get there.
They can't
Generally,
find
this
this.
is where the clubs come in and allow them to practice.
Richard?
So, I found myself struggling between all of these, and which I think is to say that I think it's a close call for all groups. And I think, there's not much I can do about the fourth, other than help people get better and build skills and that kind of thing. But crashes are going to happen. But all of the other three are things that we can work to ameliorate, particularly the one that's coming up, number one. I mean, that's really about our community. The cost, things like that, that's where clubs come in. But I think all of these are all concerns I've heard from our members.
So when you're setting up, when you're setting up your events, consider these questions. We think about like, if you want to get more people to your event, like these are some of the things that you should be considering. Like, how can I make it a welcoming atmosphere? Like, are my registration people going to be able to walk people through the registration process and explain to them how to sign up? Is our category structure set up for a beginner? We're not going to plug out fives, right? We should never plug out fives.
Also, I mean, back to what Ben was talking about, how you're messaging your event.
Right.
As part of this. Richard?
I think this is the most important conversation we're having. But I work with charity riders who are like really nervous. And so by the time they get to a race registration table, a lot of other things have happened. So you guys are like, we're not even, but Brian and I were having lunch and I work with people all the time. And our issue really is like the Wednesday night training ride in the parking lot. It is the most daunting and intimidating and exclusive. The body language, the acronyms we use, and there's nobody there that says, any first timers? It's everybody's turning their shoulder on the new person. And yeah, the person is a dork. Yep, and they've got the wrong bike, the wrong size, and they don't feel safe, they don't feel like they belong, and they don't feel like they matter. If you look at every organizational study, if you don't check those three boxes, people leave. And our culture sucks. Heaven forbid you're black. Heaven forbid you're overweight. Heaven forbid you're, of a low, you're showing up on a borrowed uncle's bike, which, by the way, 70% of the people I deal with are. I mean, there are 8-speed 3-wheels out there. I see them every week. So that's my only comment on that. So.
We're
this the same point. We only got into the sport 7 years ago, and honest to God, we came into the sport completely not knowing a single thing at all, and there wasn't a single person willing to help. And honestly, when I started my existing team 6 years ago, it wasn't for Adam, I don't think we'd be where we are today. And he took a gamble on us that he probably still regrets.
They paid me for my time.
but it was him who opened our eyes to some of these other things, and it was very daunting. I still remember turning up to races and then going up to an official and going, can you explain that to me? Like, what happened? Why is this? Blah, blah, blah. But we had no idea. No one was there to really say, hey, this is what you need.
Can you please get rid of junior year?
Well, and that's always going to be the very first thing.
One of like,
It's the first thing that
I'm in front of you
affects
guys, that's what I want. What a ridiculous ancient rule that doesn't add any value and just confuses people.
Until you get kids who are like 3 or 4 years ahead on puberty, who can ride in a 53.11 racing with people who can't.
So we gotta maybe
But is that
gears.
Yes, it's like putting a limiter on your e-bike.
It is.
It levels the playing field and keeps packs together. It does.
Tim Johnson's career started with a gear violation. People don't know.
Better effort in explaining what it is, how we handle it, making sure that when the kid fails, we don't necessarily qualify them, that we, figure out, if they won the road race by an hour, maybe we can't let that result stand, but if it's somebody who came in 9th out of 10, you don't need to put the DQ.
And you know that happens every year at Chris Hines. That's generally the very first
race of the year.
We have a ton of kids come in. Half of them have never raced before. Their parents have no idea what's going on. And the very first thing that happens is they fail roller. And education is the first thing. And it's nice to see that we're not disqualifying the kids anymore. That's not happening anymore. That we're just educating them on how to proceed from there.
If you have a junior category, set up a rollout area beforehand.
Yeah.
If
Kick
you
them
have
all
a
out.
neutral support mechanic,
Yeah.
You can put that next to them so that they can teach them how to block out gears. Like, these are just little, there's always some weird nuances with a sport, whatever it is. Junior gears happens to be one of ours. So we know that ahead of time. So as organizers, let's figure out ways where we can explain that and create a experience where people don't go, oh my God, I took my kid to that bike race and they told me it was terrible because he cheated.
Yeah.
I know that he probably wants to move on to the next slide, but I think all that raises is the death of the club system and the knowledge base that used to exist in the club system. And one of the reasons it's been great for me to work with New England Evo is because I saw them trying to recreate a thing that I benefited from. So now, if you discover the sport and find out about that club and join that club, that problem will get solved before you get to Chris Hines. And we could have another hour or more just talking about the club system and how to revive the club system, what we lost with the club system. But New England Evo and CCAP, and we're seeing that a little bit of a rejuvenation of the club system. That's an hour-long conversation, but that's where that stuff gets sorted out. That's where the parking lot anxiety gets fixed. Is you come up with it.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And USA Cycling knows this. Yeah. Rob knows this.
When did USA Cycling drop the requirement for clubs to put?
Right. This is a conversation that we've had lots and lots of times. Like pros and cons of asking clubs, no longer requiring clubs to organize a race. That's nothing good or bad.
Forcing a club to put on a race is just another disincentive down the road.
And that's USA Cycling.
It didn't have to be a race.
Well,
You could put on clinics, but it meant if you wanted to be a USA Cycling Club, you had to do something other than just wear matching jerseys.
right, but the key there is if you want to be using the same club, like.
So one of the things that this is going to be weird, some of the defenders out here, you got to remember, this was 2 CBOs ago that this happened.
Yes.
So, a lot of the times, when we get together like this, it's easy to be like, oh, they did this wrong. Like, these are rules that happen, it's sort of gone. it's probably not something that we can bring back, except for an organization like NEBRA. Like, we can now incent clubs, if you want to join NEBRA for free, go on an event, like, we'll give you a little nudge.
It's already, I mean, it's an acknowledgement of your contribution, but
Right.
it's not a big motivator.
Do we have a statistic on how many riders are attached?
That's a great
Good
question.
Good question. I don't know.
The answer is a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's a legit question. I mean, if that's the case, and you say the ship has already sailed on like the unattached rider fee, I guess one of my questions is why? Why is the ship sailed?
So,
Again, it's a disincentive, it's
Yeah.
a barrier to entry.
Yeah, the discovery process for cycling has changed a lot. You don't discover it necessarily through that local shop club ride anymore. So the big clubs, that you saw that you got involved in, don't really exist anymore. People will do Zwift on their own and then go out and decide to do it. Teams don't really enter into it at some point. We have teams that are, micro teams now of 5, 6, 7 people because you can deliver kit.
And I'm not saying that's not true. That is absolutely the opposite of our experience. I mean, we're one of the largest clubs in Connecticut now. And how many riders do we have to have? 4 or 5. We've got close to 100 members, and we're expecting to have 60 registered racers by the time we're done. I guess I'm just saying that maybe that is what's going on. It's just not something. Maybe it's because we're making a mountain bike and cyclocross team. I don't know.
So of your 100 members, how do we get those 100 members to race more? Or how many of them don't race at all?
I would say we're probably the way a lot of them came in is they have a member of their family who races. So for us, we were really, really set on building a community. So I just remember stage 1 in 2016. At that point, there might have been 8 guys on the team, and we were a masters crit team. That was it. I came in and said, you know what, let's do something different, and let's get rid of all barriers to becoming a team member. We're not going to look at dress-based any of that. Anyone who wants to come ride with us, just come ride with us. And then from there, members of the family kind of got interested. We throw parties every quarter. I mean, I know it sounds kind of goofy, but that's what builds the community, getting people to come to a barbecue. And while they're there, a lot of the moms of the juniors that we had ride, they call themselves the Bloody Mamas now, so they tried out racing. And so little by little, just by doing stuff like that, we've been building, 2016, we had about 20 or 30. 2017, we went, and now we're right around 100. So anyway, that's a long, but I think the answer is building community.
Right. I think you're completely right. I wonder how many of these communities there are, how many big clubs there are, they're doing well. And who else looked at your community and didn't want to be a part of it, who wasn't here to talk about it. And that's not a criticism, right? I mean, there's, again, who are the customers we don't have? Who didn't join our community because they looked over and was like, I just see a bunch of white dudes riding around, white masters, 40+ white guys. What? That's not just one person.
It sounds like they've changed from there too.
Yeah, no, I know. We're all working on it. That's always the thing that I ask. Who are you missing?
Oh, you're 100% right, and some of that is an effort for us to go out and get those folks who maybe otherwise we're not always seeing. We're still getting more women and
well, that's why I think this is funny that we all voted for a sense of community.
Yeah.
Because I think that's also the reason people aren't racing bikes.
Right. You have to get
They
into
don't
the
want to
club.
join our.
Once you're in the club, it's very compelling.
Yeah, it's a very hard club to get into.
So one of the things that we sort of talked about, we talked about this a little bit in the promoter side of succession, teaming up with somebody to help run your event off into the future. Clubs can also team up to expand their base. One of the great things about the CCAP program is, CCAP is a great program, but there's all these programs underneath it. There's all the different teams underneath it, and there is room for whatever you want to do in that organization. So if your club, is strictly masters, and then you join with a club that's juniors, you make a confederation that widens the sense of community and invites more people in. You can get back to that big club mentality. We want to be coupled with big considerations.
One last question, or one last comment.
Well, I don't know if this now is the time, but I'm curious about people's experiences running a first timers race versus a Cat 5, for example. I did my first cross race this season, and the number of $4,000 bikes and shaved legs and touches and body pack that's in the group is a lot more than the Clydesdale asthmatic shop and stuff.
You didn't check that box?
He's a loser.
We do a first time race.
We do an intro clinic,
We do an
which
intro
is
clinic, it's a race.
almost the word first time.
Well, right, yeah. So I mean, at Greenfield, which is a crit, which I think is one of the more intimidating styles of racing for newcomers, we do a clinic, an off-site clinic, and then actually hold a 20-minute race for all the people. And you do get people on the jankiest bikes ever, like kids from around the block. And it can be like little, it's the most terrifying race to me of the day, even though like there's 10 of them and they're really far apart. But it's, you know, it is at least giving people kind of like a controlled environment. And that model is admittedly borrowed from Al and Atwood and all the stuff they did at HBC, which is how I got into racing. And I was an intro racer and I found it, you know, enormously valuable. So I think that it's, getting it off the ground can be a little bit tough, but I think it's worth it.
It's kind of like a lost leader where you basically have to take a hit on the schedule and price, trying to make it accessible.
Yeah.
And it also fits into that thing you talked about with the narrative of your event. You want your event to be beginners friendly, and you want to have, you know, a lot of people who make it not necessarily be bike racers at your event. Make sure you offer that category and make sure that your language, you know, you treat it like a first timers race and steer those more experienced Cat 5s maybe into the 4-5 race. Or if you have an open race, you can, in some sense, direct your people to the proper event. But as organizers, you know, we can offer those experiences if we know that people.
One more comment.
One of the things that's changed in the past, 30 years since I started racing is back when we had bigger clubs earlier was because we were going to put on an event because we had to. You needed more bodies. The other advantage to that was that if you had a big club, you could pull out a lot of people that help you. Most of the people that help you with the Frozen Four don't race. They're a club members. They show up, they hang out, they have a good time, we take up a lunch afterwards, that kind of thing. Yeah. But those are also the people that are going to be in the race. Right. So that builds your community.
It's why it's super important for us as an organization, speaking like for NEBRA and for USA Cycling, to get out to those gravel events, those non-traditional events, and at least say, hi, we're here, we're doing stuff with bike racing, and maybe somebody doesn't want to come race a criterion, but maybe they want to come watch. Maybe they watch and then they become a volunteer. Maybe they, you know, decide, wow, there's somebody driving a motorcycle around here, and like they're on the stop sign, and they can do whatever they like. We'll put them in an official state. Like,
that's happening.
But these, you know, when we talk about that sense of community, this larger, if somebody's on the bike, we want them to be a part of people, we want them to be a part of USA Cycling because there are roles for everybody in this organization. We can move on. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, clearly we could talk about this forever. I think this is interesting. So clearly people are. Wait, what?
How can a series reduce that?
Oh, reduce.
Right.
I think you just sort of qualified.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, this is a pretty simple question.
So 86% agree.
All right, we're going to talk about some less general things, more about decision making.
Why are we here?
Why we're here. Well, hopefully it was going to be challenging to figure out every single option.
Make money.
It only took me 30 years, but you made money. You made money on a UCI race. And I paid all my volunteers. Except you. I think you're the only one who kind of. Everybody gets it.
Yeah, your races are like any part of
Thank you.
See, this is community and tradition are almost one and the same.
I went 0.
Yeah. Like, look at Fitchburg. So many people just kept pouring into it, but the base of it went away.
Yeah.
Community went away.
Well, I think that's like a really interesting thing in two conversations. The first is this whole thing about like promoter attrition, like how long are people going to be doing it, what's the succession plan? And then the other one is like, as we see new trends come on, we lament the death of every race as like because of the tradition, but sometimes making room for something else that can be really great.
Agreed.
And that's a little challenging.
The number of cycling events in New England is not going down. Okay. It's just the number of cycling events that are bike races in the traditional sense is. So let's keep going. We got 6 minutes left. And I really like the next two questions.
We do always grieve the loss of an event that's been done for years
It's
and years.
appropriate for years, for sure.
And got killed for some very bad reasons.
I think these correct. Oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Me neither. I
Oh,
thought
this
it
is
was
great.
Yeah.
You thought you'd have more curmudgeons?
I was worried that 10 plus was going to be the most popular answer.
Well, this tells you a lot. This is really telling.
There's a hump you gotta get over.
Yeah, because people quit.
All right.
The next question has to be, how long have you been involved in the sport?
So,
See, you should have been in our little workshop where we get slides.
so if you're in that 1 to 2 years and you're worried about getting over the hump, reach out to somebody else, reach out to one of these people who's further.
Oh, wow. You people are really touchy here.
Ask for help.
If anyone, there's a different answer to this question based on how long ago your race happened. So.
We're done. All right, reset this one.
So did you know that the kind of people that come to a promoter summit are the kind of people that are planning to do this for a long time?
Or like, wow, yeah.
This is why.
Yeah, if you need to get the email address,
I would, yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, who took a Sunday out of their lives to be here?
Yeah, yeah.
That's already a selection.
Maybe this is a great reminder about selection bias. We're all like, oh, we know what's going on. But like, we are totally outliers.
Is there an performance rating question coming up?
You said 0.
Right now, I'm done.
Well, the day all the results are submitted and everything that someone left behind.
If you run multiple events, aggregate.
Yeah.
Wow. So we're just talking about one. It's close. We talked about the other one.
Yeah.
The Green Book is a loss leader for BTC.
What are you spending all your money on?
Yo, that's not a joke. We had a secret budget.
Oh, that's
Jeez,
funny.
you have to go. So,
I wanted to get
I only.
US.
so this is survivorship bias because if your event loses money more than a couple times, you don't have to.
You're gone.
But right, you don't come here. You don't have to spend.
Well, you need to ask how many years in a row.
Richard.
Could I just say, given the scars on my back, I think it'd be a great asset for NEBRA to say, show it, can we help you with your budget? Because I think a lot of people wander into it like, it'll be great, let's put on a show. And they don't know how to make a budget, and they don't factor. And I know USA Cycling does the permanent thing, but it's like.
But this is something where we, as a regional organization, can help, because if you're trying to put on a road race in Connecticut, I'm probably going to tell you not to do it because you can't afford to pay the police back. I'll tell you to go over to Massachusetts or to New York, because there are some discipline-specific things, some event-specific things. There are some challenges there, but yes, we should put some sample budgets up, and if anybody has questions,
So given the number of times I've looked at other people's budgets and talked about budgets, we really should just publicize the fact that we have ideas and opinions on this stuff. Because I would love to look at any budget. And I think a lot of, like, I think that's a resource we can provide, and maybe we're not publicizing.
Yeah.
Granted, like, you live in a different world than me, but like, I'd love to talk about it. And
Sure.
So,
I would love a vote of the room to see who would be willing to publish theirs as much. So, I know, yeah, which is interesting because one of the events I do, we asked before, and the other one, just because of how that person didn't say no. Whereas I could probably both flat to say how they vote.
Yeah, and both of those are perfectly legitimate. I mean, we don't want to stigmatize anybody who's out to make money, because that's a legitimate thing. But that should turn a profit of some kind, whether it's an emotional profit, or a financial profit, you advertise your brand, but.
okay, we're at the end of our time. This is a good question to end on. Given where we're going this afternoon and the future. Why use this cycling?
I have something different on my screen.
It should.
It refresh, it gives you an option to refresh the presenter on the next slide.
We skipped.
Yeah, just go up top. I'm sorry.
But
Okay.
this is some deep thoughts about why you sanction. Why is this a scale of 1 to 2?
Yeah.
You set it up, buddy.
How fast does it change, William?
You like it or you don't like it?
And
You need it or you
I
don't?
thought this was such a good question, and like, you must have messed the scale up.
Do you want to go back?
I don't think of time.
Oh, hold on, I'm not even getting that. I got this question.
You just gotta refresh at the top.
Cancel,
So it's out there.
go to slide. Oh,
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, needs a few more.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can.
I thought this should have been a scale of 1 to 5. Right.
Definitely, the only is very right.
Well, think about it, right? If you break all the rules on unsanctioned race, it doesn't stop anything. If you're a doper at unsanctioned race.
Oh, this one's pretty different.
Yeah.
So we're gonna.
Oh, okay.
We never let.
Are you next?
Hold on, we're just-
slides. You just have your copy. So we quit switch over.
Are we voting, are we gonna vote again?
Yeah.
We're gonna go again.
Yeah, we want, actually really want to run this.
But there was another
I
slide that
cannot,
was
hold on.
interesting.
I can do
Then what would you do with
Uh,
2,000?
Yeah,
Maybe,
that's all right.
we're talking about it.
That's fine. There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Lee is the next one. Thank you. Sorry, I messed this up.
Okay, refresh.
Do it again.
Okay.
All right, there.
All right, scale of 1 to 5, what's important?
I like the questions that were up next. Not yet. People really want us to send letters.
It's totally me. People of everything. So their insurance is the most important.
Surprising.
That's the average.
That's the average across all
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
So Lydia, we should be back this time.
we should.
How did the slides stay in there? Oh, no, you're right. We should ask this.
There's like 3 more.
This is more, yeah.
They won't take that long.
So
We
what
won't
are we
talk
gonna
about
go,
it.
go to the new slide?
We won't talk about it.
All right.
Okay. This.
Do I need to rank them?
No, it's all sliders. 1 to 5. I'd like to think not everybody needs help with every single thing. There should be something that people feel like they do perfectly and don't get help with. way,
Interesting.
event calendar is leading.
Very interesting.
Why is that surprising?
When you think
That
about
doesn't surprise
Because
me.
it's the easiest thing to,
Yeah.
fix. It's like a conference call.
It's the easiest thing to fix, Adam.
If you know. As an example, I can put my money where my mouth is here.
You're a UCI promoter, you don't pay attention to what happens below you, man.
CD.
No, seriously. I obviously have some calendar privilege, but what happens at the UCI level?
You get it.
It also can be replicated at the regional level. Someone, before USA Cycling helped us out with the UCI calendar, was me. Everybody called me and I talked to everybody else and I put people together and I facilitated conversations between organizers and I kept the calendar and I did that work for free. So it is possible for that to happen at the regional level as well. It just is work.
I resent that you think it doesn't happen.
I didn't say it didn't happen.
You said it's possible, implying that, and it's solvable. This is, the real takeaway here is that calendar stuff we do,
It's hard
is
work.
really important.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was that important, but I guess that's because.
Just being the nexus for all the organizers.
Can I ask a
and the
question,
one.
Lee?
Yeah.
For all the promoters in the room, how many of you would not be willing to have your contact information in a list associated with your event that's freely distributed to all the other? So
It's already public info.
it is, that doesn't exist. So handle it. I mean, I happen to, over the years, learn who the other promoters are, but I can't go.
On
Here's-
my race, the contact is
Yeah,
No, I'm
that's-
talking about a different thing, not before they put it up on like.
Oh, before.
How do I, as a promoter, know? I need to find out what's happening with Social Media this year, because my date always.
Oh, yeah. Look at the previous years. Those are all.
But no, he just means an easy way.
He just wants, yeah.
So
When I
promoters need to talk to promoters, not.
So when I do the cross calendar, we solicit everyone, when everyone thinks the date's gonna be, what the event is, and then when I publish that, it does include an email address for that person, right? Which is the beginning of resolving conflicts.
Right.
Potentially.
All right,
It's just kind of ad hoc, right?
Adam, it's your turn.
That's funny.
We'll leave that up while
I didn't actually get to answer.
You will?
Okay. Thanks everyone for playing.
Hey, this is fun.
Right, while we're waiting for that to come up here, in the back of everybody's badges, there should be a little ticket.
We don't need to sync his data.
The real question for was everybody voting?
Did anybody not get the ticket?
I know some are thinking about that.
No, so it.
No.
What's the other hat? What's the other hat?
Sorry?
380.
Well, you gave me a shitty number then.
Your fault, Dave. Hey, there you go. All right.
Okay. 400. 400.
What number you're in the last break?
Oh, the last somewhere. Somewhere. We'll do a couple more after that.
We have to give you some incentive for you to stick around and talk, so free stuff will maybe help with that. So I primarily want to use this time formally to talk about the cross committee, what we do, how it works, so you understand a little more about that. But it obviously touches a lot of things, and I have a lot of roles in New England cycling, and I want to talk about some of those things we do with you as well. So very quickly, New England Crit Week. I took over New England Crit Week this summer. I'm trying to do the best I can with it. I think it has a lot of potential. I'm looking at models like Tour of America's Dairyland and Intelligentsia Cup, where you have a regional crit series that riders are traveling from around the country to do, but also is the best racing of the year for the riders in that region. And as we lose races and lose crits, you see that everybody is flocking to these events. These events are getting bigger. And you're seeing that with the Notorious series as well, right? Numbers are down, my numbers weren't. So as people race less, as there are fewer racers racing less often, they're supporting the best events, and those numbers are holding steady. After Rasputitsa, the numbers that Colin put out, Northampton was the biggest turnout for any event, any discipline, according to bike reg numbers. I don't know how that changes when you break it down per day because you use the weekend numbers, but it was still, I think it's still actually, you pick any one of those days and I think it's still one of the biggest.
700 per day is a lot.
Right. So
Is that, how many did you get?
almost 1,500, 1,450. We held steady with last year, which I was really nervous. Like we were 200 behind up until the last day. And then everybody signed up.
The days roughly even?
Yeah, Saturday is always a little bigger, I think, than Sunday for whatever reason. I don't know what that is, work or whatever, but what a relief it is to hold steady and a bit of contraction. For me, that feels like growth. So I'm just trying not to lose my shirt. If the race loses money, that's my money. That's Cycle Smart's money, it's my money. You know, and most of us can't spend our own money to put bike races on, especially if once you have a family and things like that. I mean, not that anybody can, but back to Crit Week in particular, the reason why I want to bring it up here is because I have some organizers in the room. What I'm looking at with Crit Week is I want to focus on that slot between Toad and Intelligentsia Cup, because it's going to turn into something bigger than just a New England race. It can't conflict with those things, because what we saw was riders were skipping Fitchburg to go to Toad, right? That hurt. That hurts my feelings, right? As someone who's been racing bikes for a long time and has that sense of tradition with an event like Fitchburg, they cared more about the quality of racing they were going to get out of Toad than they did at racing at Fitchburg. So the folks that were involved in New England Crit Week before me did a good job of stringing some races together and starting the series. And then they wanted to step out. It was a good opportunity for me to step in and see if I could basically repeat my model, my Vittoria Series model with Crit Week. Worked okay. I lost some events, right? So like Salem's not happening. We lost one day at Leominster. I lost Beverly. Like now what? I got nothing. And so this year, going into this year, trying to keep everybody in that window, it's even worse. Fitchburg can't. I want the window after 4th of July. First two weekends of July is what we have to work with. And July 4th used to be a big crit period in history of New England. The Andy Raymond Firecracker Criterium was always on July 4th, no matter what day of the week it was on. I think those days are gone. I think my attempt to try to do that isn't going to work, and I have to just accept that. And Fitchburg has to go the weekend before 4th of July this year. They're on the 28th, I think. So Fitchburg's not going to be in Crit Week if there's a Crit Week, because I can't have a weekend off in the middle of Crit Week. And so what we have now is maybe Exeter on what day? It's after July 4th, whatever that first. Yeah. And Greenfield on that Sunday. I'm all, I don't want to say stuck, but the Gran Fondo is the Saturday before Greenfield, and I can't get them to move. They tried, we looked at it, they're on that Saturday. 2 races isn't a Crit Week. I was going to reach out to you, but I know you've already got a date for your stuff, and I've been a little bit busy, but organizers, if you want to put on a criterium, in that Monday through Sunday, that first week after July 4th, so let's call it the second weekend of July, talk to me. I haven't given up on it yet. Yeah.
So, asking for me.
Yeah.
What requirements for anyone else that wants to do it to join me in Crit Week? I mean, talk about.
Yeah, let's be careful. I don't want to spend the whole half an hour talking about this, but it is important. But very quickly, I was trying to be a little pickier in the past because I wanted Exeter's. I wanted a week full of Exeter and Beverly and Salem. That's truly what I want. I want events, right? And like we talked about with the CCAP Kermesse, it's a great race for the racers. No one's driving out to watch it. And I hope I'm not, the reality of it. It's really fun to do. And it's a good event because it's probably pretty cheap to run and you have a lot of flexibility, but you were stuck. The problem there was there's some other conflicts, things going on. Wasn't as easy to find a slot as we thought it could be. And then we tried to bring Haverhill, in, and they could only go on a Sunday. I needed a race on a Saturday, couldn't get them in. What I want is $1,000 in prize money for men and women each. 1 hour races for men and women each. And I'm talking about Pro 1-2 or Pro 1-2-3, whatever your feature race is for the day. I want equality there. Beyond that, you pretty much can do what you want. It's not like Victoria's Series where I'm on a control schedule. Those could be the only 2 races you run. But what I do need is parity throughout the rest of your schedule. So what I don't want is equality there in the races that I care about, but then the rest of your day is full of Masters categories with $1,000 prize lists and no women's races. I can't be a part of that. So.
In terms of location, flexibility.
Yeah.
Wherever.
Yeah. There's going to be no crit week right now. So I'm going to have to, I don't want to say lower my standards, let's say be more flexible in my vision for the series, because I don't want this to die. And having done Super Week a million times before Toad existed, even Toad and the way Toad works now, not all of those races are in like downtown areas with big, they got to put another event. Sometimes it's at a race car track that's closed for the day, and there's nothing going on there. And the riders don't seem to care. The riders like those events too.
Do you happen to know, maybe Raymond, do you know what happens to it? Is there
there's a good article about it that I found I actually went back and did some research on it. He either got sick or he just eventually died and it stopped for that reason. Okay. Because like someone took over. No, they loved it. Okay. In the guy who died recently, and there's an obituary. Yeah. And in the obituary, it talks about, do you know?
Adam, he was a Middletown firefighter who was into bike racing.
Yeah.
He got the mayor of the city on board with it. It became a festival.
That's right. You stopped asking for permission. I think this is the key. When you get to a place with your event and you're not asking for permission anymore, where your municipality is a partner, this is what we have at the park. And it's not permission that we ask for. They're a partner in the event. They make money on the event. They get all that parking money. If you come in Northampton and pay that parking money, that's not my money. That's their money. That's what it is. But I also don't pay them anything. Well, that's not true. I pay them $2 per rider per day for the landscaping. Like that's my fee to the park. So they're making enough money off me that, yeah. Okay. That's my first 15 of my 30 minutes. But Adam at Cycle Smart, reach out. I don't want to give up on Crit Week, and I'm willing to. It's time for me to be flexible and see what we can do to just keep this thing going. So that's what I'm looking for. I'll try to write something up. Needs and gives and takes. Yeah.
For Friday night work?
Absolutely. I'd kill for a Friday night. Yeah. What's that? New Britain would be great. Is it in that window though? Can you move? Yeah, absolutely. New Britain Square. Huh?
The race Friday, the fundraiser for your race is also the Saturday for Greenville. So.
What's that?
What is it? What's the event?
The Team Race Ride is.
Oh, it's just a ride.
Oh, that's the fundraiser, but it draws a lot of people.
Right. So that's a bummer, is what you're saying.
Saturday's
I want the Fundo to move. There's a bunch of reasons why it can't. It can't conflict with. It's so funny that you pull one thread, but like it can't conflict with Glamfest because there's overlap in the organization there. There's some connections in Maine that help run the Fundo. So, second weekend of July. I'd take a race that.
The 6th to the 10th?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I'd take a weekend race the weekend before, so July 4th, I believe, is a Friday. Saturday. I'd take a Sunday race to kick things off. Right now, Exeter is going to kick things off on Tuesday, but it could span 2 weekends. That would be fine. But what I want is Monday through. But Saturdays, I can't do Saturday now because I can't. You know, Al Donahue, my most important. Yeah, no, but it's really a bad spot for me. Like my business partner has an event in the middle of this window that he can't move. We've even talked about do you want a gravel race? It's part of Crit Week. Is that the new landscape that we're operating in? Is that a thing that I do? Those are things we're talking about. So, okay, so yeah, let me know if you're interested. Pass the word. I haven't had a chance to publicize that more, but I thought today was a good day to let people know. Very quickly, I'll announce some Victoria Series changes later. We're going to have UCI Junior Women's races, and that's going to change that schedule. And I want to revamp some things there. And right now, I still only have 3 weekends Really rad festival. I was hoping they were going to come in and support the weekend. They're not really interested in doing it, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about that. Maybe Highland Park in New Jersey could join the series. There's lots of possibilities, so it might just be 3 weekends again. Cross committee. So first, just to let you know what the cross committee is, basically it's an advisory group. We don't make any rules. We don't have any power. We have influence, very specifically an advisory committee. My role is I'm the at-large seat, which means everybody is eligible to vote for my position. And I thought that was, when that opened up, was a good thing for me to run for because I'm a racer and a master and a coach and an organizer. The only thing I haven't done is officiate. And so the at-large seat to me feels, no. Don't want to job. Yeah, I appreciate what you do, so much so that I don't want to do it. Yeah, we all, everybody, there are so many jobs in cycling, and it's very easy to forget how much heavy lifting other people do to just make the sport happen. I think with the officials in particular, I think everyone wants to gripe about USA Cycling, the money you send to USA Cycling. I know how much money I send to USA Cycling. I don't know how I would run my race without you guys. And when it's the same crew that comes back every year, I'm always so happy to see the same faces come because it lets me know that you had a good time looking at my event, and I have someone who knows how my event goes. And that's when my event goes so smoothly, so smoothly. I haven't told you guys that before. Thank you. Yeah, it's important to me. Kristen not being at the event was crazy. You know, like, I know, it's just, I panicked for a second. So other committee members are, like, there's a coach rep, there's a masters rep, there's 2 athlete reps, and so those committee members are, it's just some names if they come up for you. Tom Maines from New Jersey, who runs a lot of the events in the Mid-Atlantic and New Jersey area. Katie Compton's one of the athlete members, Jeremy Powers. Tom Nee is our official. Pete Weber, I believe, is our, who's Pete's? Juniors? Masters?
I think it's juniors.
No, I think it's masters, even though he speaks to juniors in his role the majority of the time. Craig Undham is our coach rep, who's someone that we added ourselves because we didn't have a coach rep. The coach rep had resigned and then no one ran for it. And so we reached out to a couple people, and he's lives in Seattle, good person to have representing that area and runs a junior team there. And Brooke Watts is our race organizer rep. And if you don't know Brooke, he runs the World Cup. He's going to be running championships. He ran Cross Vegas. So it's a good group right now. And it's been, when I joined the committee, this is my second term, so 3 years ago originally, the complaint was the committee had a lot of good ideas, spent a lot of time talking, had good meetings, and then nothing happened. None of that turned into action at USA Cycling. So when I joined, the group was angry. Pete Weber especially, like, they were just fed up and they were fighting with each other a lot about the things that they wanted. And somehow with this group, Tom Nee especially, I think, he's so good. And if you follow his social media at all, he's actually living in Belgium right now. He's worked at our race before. He's successful in business, knows how to organize people, and he stepped up right away to sort of be the president of our group. And so we have, as we've been told by USA Cycling, we're the most active, most organized, most successful sport committee at USA Cycling. We've affected the most change. And I think Tom is a big part of that, but also we just got a bunch of good voices, lots of strengths and weaknesses in there, and that we get things done. And so Pete, instead of being the guy, he runs Boulder junior cycling, instead of just being on the call shouting about the things that he's not getting, we've been able to actually get in those things. A bunch of us came in and were like, yeah, we agree, how can we make this happen? And we were lucky that we also, I joined the committee when Derek Bouchard-Hall came on as CEO. Derek heard us. Derek wanted the change that we wanted. When Derek left, it was really a bummer for us because he symbolized this changing of the guard at USA Cycling for us. Like the Louis Savoy, Steve Johnson era of USA Cycling was over, in my opinion, with the introduction of Derek as CEO. And I hope that will continue with Rob DiMartini. I think we're all hopeful that that's going to happen. Even though we're in big changes for sure at USA Cycling. I think we're all nervous and excited to see how it's going to go. The thing that I can do for you is you use me as your advocate. Email me your complaints, your problems, your questions, and I try to bring them up to the committee. We have a call once a month. USA Cycling is on that call. How we've been able to turn that into action, which I think has been the difference with this group, is these really specific, successful things that we've done. So Tom immediately got us plugged in at the USAC Development Foundation. So if you aren't aware, and for a long time I wasn't, there's like a small handful of rich dudes that spend a lot of money on bike racing at USA Cycling. And they have a lot of influence, and they have seats on the board. They're bringing in their own money, and basically, like, this is probably the one, it's hard to say if it's good or a bad thing, but it's left over from the Steve Johnson era, where that money is really keeping elite athletics going. They want to see Tour de France level riders, and that's what they're willing to pay for. None of that was coming to cyclocross. So whether it's good or bad, how do we get that money for us? We were like, we need to get some of that. So Tom went in there with some of his own money and said, I'm going to put up my own money for cross. I need you guys to start matching it. And we need to start getting people in the foundation who care about crosses that did that. And as a result of that, next thing you know, Tim Johnson is, what's his title? Director of that development foundation. So we got a cross guy in charge of the rich guys. Like, man, that was good. So I don't want to be naive that I understand everything that happens in Colorado, because I don't. But we are starting to get some inroads into what's going on. And along those lines, what I would say is, when people want to criticize USA Cycling, you're all part of USA Cycling. You wouldn't be here. But I know you all have your complaints about USA Cycling, because I do too. Call people out and ask them who they need. Like, Stuart's here. Like, I've been working with Stuart for a long time. We knew each other, like, before we were in the roles that we're in now. It's important to remember that. Like, I know the names of the people, and there are people who like race bikes and care about bike racing the same way that we all do, who are willing to live in Colorado Springs and get underpaid to work on bike racing. Like, they're not up to anything. There's no agenda, because there's nothing for what? To control what? Like, to what game? So when people want to blame USA Cycling for everything that they're unhappy with, they don't know what they're talking about, and they don't know who they're talking about. And you've probably done it too, right? And so try to call people out in your conversations. Ask them who they mean. Get them to put a name to the complaint that they have. Well, who's in charge of you? You know, like, who do you think is trying to take that from you? Who is it? Who's not doing their job up there? Tell me who you mean. They can't. And it may cause them to look a little deeper into, well, who is in charge of this thing? Do I have an advocate that I can reach out to? So that might be me. I might be able to help you with that. But I just have had a lot of, I want to change things, right? I've been in the sport for a long time. Since I was a teenager. It's going close to 35 years at this point. For sure, the sport that I fell in love with is gone. It doesn't exist, and it's hard for me. And now, not only was I able to sort of pursue it as a passion, and then make a living as a racer just barely, and now try to make a living as a coach using all that knowledge that I amassed over that time, the sport that I love it's gone. It doesn't exist. And so what do? How do I respond to that? And so when we get accused sometimes of maybe being like elitist or like closed in our thing because we're not understanding the way cycling is changing, part of that is because, well, it's not what we were interested in. That's not how we came into the sport. It's not the thing that got us excited. We didn't come into the sport because of gravel. We came into the sport because of crits and cross and Putney Road Race. And I know I'm probably earlier than some of you too, but a lot of the things that brought us into the sport have changed. Well, that's why it's funny. How long have we been riding gravel? Since we had bikes. It's not new. No, that's a whole other hour. But even as a business owner, I want to coach gravel racers. I have to coach gravel racers or I don't have a job anymore. So what I'm trying to do when I think about what I don't want to do is, I don't want to be a gatekeeper for a sport that doesn't exist anymore. I don't want to be a curmudgeon. I want people to ride bikes, and I want them to enjoy it whatever way they're going to enjoy it. And if it's turning into a thing that's a little different than what I fell in love with, that's fine. I still have to coach those people. I still want to turn this gravel bubble into a ripple effect, into the things that I like most. I mean, gravels don't like racing. I think Fongo is fun. I think mass start road races of any kind. First year we ran Tour of the Hill Towns. John Fry and I ran it as a Fongo because we didn't know if it was a thing that we were going to be able to do again. And so we put 250 people on that course that started together. It might have been the best edition of the Tour of the Hill Towns. That was 20 years ago. Now the Hill Towns as an event is trying to reinvent itself again and struggle to survive and maybe needs to go back to that model. But we have to be open to the new, as race organizers, we have to be open to these new ways that people are coming into the sport. And some of us are gravel organizers too, I'm sure, and figuring out how that works. But my guess is the thing that you care most about is traditional cyclocross criterions, road racing, mountain bike racing. And so of course that's what you're going to evangelize for, even if you like racing gravel. At some point, I hope there are a bunch of gravel organizers who are going through USA Cycling who are in this room as well, representing their division of sport. We can't deny the chance. Maybe there'll be Zwift event organizers in here as well. And I'm not even really joking about that. Like, I'm doing Zwift races too. And I need to coach Zwift athletes. Like, esports are a thing. I want to say, I can't just say, well, that's not my interest, so I'm not going to do it. So I like working with USA Cycling because I want both change. Like, I started running cyclocross races at the age of 19 because I was like, this race stinks, I could do a better job than that. And that spirit is what's motivated me to start my business and get involved. Even when I should have been completely focused either on school or being a pro bike racer, so I was organizing races and trying to make the sport better out of some sense of being like, I could do this better, I can do this differently. So going to Europe and racing in UCI races in Switzerland in the 90s is part of why I came back and said, let's put on UCI races here. Let's have a regional UCI series. So it's always that, like, seeing something, seeing how I can make it better, seeing I can bring it back to my community. And you're all here doing exactly the same thing. So rather than start an alternate, when we started NEBRA, I was one of the co-founders of NEBRA. The goal was to create an organization that we could walk away with from USA Cycling if we had to. And this is when Gerard Baseglia had come on as the CEO of USA Cycling. He was wonderful. And he came and met with us and made a deal with us. And that deal is why JD gets paid now. That deal that we made then, where we get a percentage of licenses. Other LAs don't have that. And that's because we threatened to leave. And that's how the LA model actually came about. So it's a big change now for that to be, for Rob to be, like, that's a little personal for me. I'm worried about us making forgetting why we made the changes that we made and walking back into some of these mistakes again. That makes me nervous. I like Rob's new ideas. I'm ready for change. The fact that Rob doesn't have that legacy of knowledge and experience makes me nervous. I hope he's listening, and it seems like he's listening to the people around him who can advise him about that past. It's why I like Derek. Derek for me was the right mix of business experience and bike racing experience and legacy knowledge. Rob has that clear business experience, and I think can save us a lot of money. It might hurt. There might be some austerity measures happening that are going to hurt for a while. I hope he doesn't sink the membership at a time where it's hard to keep people. Anyway, I think the key with the committee is bringing that back around is Jesse's position, the cyclocross manager position, is probably the best thing that we did. Like, when they're working on the schedule for nationals, we see that. and we give them feedback. Hey, move this around. There's 6 people who are experts looking at that national schedule, finding the little holes in it that one person would never find, and then those changes get made. So that's an example of a thing that we might do. When these changes are coming with the World Cup, that's something else that we work on. We're having conversations about like, what's the World Cup schedule going to do to the US schedule, and how do we send that back up to the UCI? So there's communication even like at that level down the committee back up. But the creation of Jesse's position, and it wasn't for Jesse, it was a creation of the position. The thing that we lobbied hardest for and found the money for ourselves is this cyclocross manager position. Other disciplines don't have this. So USA Cycling didn't have the money to just spend $30,000 or $50,000 on creating a new employee to run cyclocross. But we went out and found that money, got some people to match it, created a job description, and then they shopped it around and they hired Jesse. For me, that is, and I hope you agree and are seeing how different it is having Jesse in that role already. If you have a problem with anything related to cyclocross at USA Cycling, you can email Jesse and he will email you back. He was emailing me yesterday from Hoogerheide about USA Cycling cyclocross talent ID camps next August. I had an email ready for him that I was waiting till after Worlds to send him. He's working with, you can imagine the chaos of the Team USA house right now, and I'm getting emails like that from him, I think. So this is why I stay involved with USA Cycling, and I'm a joiner. I want to infiltrate and then make change from the inside. That's always been my strategy, as opposed to rock throwing. I hate the USA Cycling rock throwers. I want to see work from those people. I want to know what they're doing other than just complaining. So that's why I ran for this position, because I'd had official and unofficial roles in the past. Now that I'm done racing full time, this is an example to actually like make it formal and do some work for y'all. So that's the state of the cyclocross committee union. I suppose I can stop there. I probably have gone over my time.
You nailed it. You started 5 minutes late, you finished 5 minutes later.
I'd love to answer some questions, but are there questions? Do we have time? I can answer the questions. Ben?
So talking about Jesse's work that he's at the national governing body of managing cyclocross, just because it's more regional, what as a national governing body can Jesse do for
Yeah, he's not just responsible for elite athletics. This is one of the challenges at USA Cycling. It's a big division between elite athletics and membership, right? And that's been our complaint as regular bike racers. It's always seemed in the Steve Johnson years that the emphasis was on elite athletics. It was Lance and the next Lance, and they wanted trickle-down growth. Before him, Gerard Seglia was interested in the membership, and that's why they drove him out. He didn't care about elite athletics as his first priority, cared about the membership. So I think we're in an era where Rob sees both, sees the value of both. Jesse's job is not just elite athletics, it's cyclocross in the United States. So he wants to talk about development. He wants to talk about your local race. He wants to talk about ways that USA Cycling can help you at your grassroots local cyclocross race, at the club level. If your club wants to do some cyclocross things, you have some ideas, you can reach out to Jesse. I don't know how he's going to do all this. It's a lot of work for one person, but don't get the idea that he is only in charge of the national team or the world's team. He's our ombuds person. Think of him that way. He's an ombuds. Yeah.
That could be a discussion on the print week. So in terms of the dates, things like that, you're all coordinating. I mean, I guess just to prevent overlap, like if we're interested in doing more of that, just reach out to you. Right?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll make, we all are emailing with each other, and but I'll let you know what's possible. Yeah.
So what actually happens to some of the established, the Salem, they just can't fit in the week that
right. Beverly's back. Yeah. Beverly had some problems with construction and things like that. So Beverly's back, but it's they could only go like a month later at the end of the month. Salem was interested in coming in on that Thursday, and I should check in with them and find out, but they canceled on us pretty late.
Yeah.
He lost a sponsor, or a sponsor who was tentative, didn't commit. He got nervous and canceled before he talked to us. It was a bummer because maybe I think if people knew what he needed, we could have maybe reached out and found it for him. I think we all want Salem to happen.
Yeah.
So I will talk. I'd love to have Salem back in that Thursday night slot, but my dream schedule was Exeter, Beverly, Salem on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like now I got it.
Now, I do know the biggest part of, say, going to Toad, for instance, is that there's one person who helps with host housing. And that's been, like, for a team like ours, which is the tiniest budget in the world, helps immensely. But if we want to do a similar thing, we would need to.
We're 5 or 10 years away from that, but I agree, like.
That's something to aspire to, I guess.
Yeah. So this reminds me of one small point that I wanted to make too is, I'm not sure we need new ideas.
No.
Maybe we do. Like maybe it's good to hear some new ideas. What we just need is people to do the work. It's hard to find people to do the work. It's hard to do the work. So there's no shortage of, I don't need to recreate the idea of Grit Week and how it should work. Toad's model works. I don't want to copy it. I'll make some tweaks that work for us. I'd like to do it in a way where I don't own every event, where it's a federation of events, and that's hard because now I got to convince a bunch of people to do the same thing. I've managed to do that with the Victoria series. It might be. So a Grit Week that really is truly just a week, and if I only have 6 voices maybe to deal with, might be a good way to do it. Versus Toad Intelligentsia Cup, where it's one owner for all the events. Yeah. Makes it easier than that. But yeah, we'll get there. Right now, I just need races.
And then money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one.
That's
of
the races
flaws
problem.
as to why
Yeah.
people go to Toad, right?
Yeah, it's part of it. $2,000 a day is not. If you're asking like, how do you get the elite riders to come to your race? If you've got a week of $2,000 prize list, you look at that and go, I could probably make some of that, and then you go after it.
Or the super prize that they give at certain races. Where, I mean, that's a big amount of money.
Any other questions? Great, thanks.
We do one more drawing, and then we're going to hear from 416.
Oh my God, that would be me.
Right, so one of the things we've been talking a lot about is how we're seeing this huge junior growth curve. How do you make our events more junior friendly? Does that get some parents and everybody else? So these are the experts in New England when it comes to juniors.
So this is by in no means the way we think you should run your event. These are just some best practices that we've observed over the years that help us sort of develop our program. I'm new to New England. I moved here 3.5 years ago, and when I came here, CCAP sort of welcomed my family in, and I've got 3 kids who are now racing the program, and I'm now the executive director of the program. So I sort of saw it from the outside as a parent, and then as a coach, and now as a director, and I've seen some great things. I've seen some things that need development, and we're working toward a lot of these things, which is sort of how we get all this documented. We're going to talk about today, these bullet points. One of the things that I would love to strive for as a region is some category consistency. So rather than have an open juniors category, or just a 9 to 14, or just a U18, we break it up to a 9 to 12, 13, 14, 15, 18. You've got a big disparity in riders from 9 to 14, and even from 15 to 18. But if we can get those categories a little bit closer, we have kids racing against their peers. You don't see a child racing against an adult in a lot of cases. In open categories and juniors, we have the ability to chop that up when most of the races on the course in an hour and provide a really good product.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of ways in the past, how it's usually been in junior races, kind of like set it, forget it. Like that's kind of there's certain age categories like the U18 or the U19 or whatever it is that have been like that for a while. People just kind of leave it like that. They don't really think about the specificity and the advantages of having like the 9 to 12, the 13 to 14, and 15 to 18 on the experience riders. We're not just talking about like, the category that we offer and like just making it right for a lot of things. It goes back to the experience of your event. And these kids, if they're new riders or if they're like relatively new riders, being like within the first 2 years of the sport, and they're having to race against 13, 14 when they're 9 years old, they might not like cycling anymore. Some of them actually could argue find it as a challenge and motivator, but it might be tough as well. So that's where this kind of goes into play. It's more than just that.
Sure, I saw where this failed absolutely, and that was in the Mid-Atlantic. I used to run a cyclocross program there, and I pushed really hard when I was on the board of the Mid-Atlantic Cyclocross series to have split juniors categories. And I was told, well, this is the way we've always done it. My kid went up this program as a U19 rider, and they had to fight, and they didn't have any special treatment. And I said, this isn't special treatment. We have 12 juniors in this category, of the U19 category. Let's try to make that 120. We can do that by splitting up these categories. And we've obviously had that success. A lot of races in the Tory Series and in New England in general have had success by having a broader spectrum of junior categories. I've talked to Laura about this a lot. Morning categories and trying to pair the categories with masters races or with entry-level women's and men's races really helps because it keeps the family cluster at the beginning of the day or at one part of the day. So if we don't have juniors racing at 8 a.m. and masters women racing at 2 p.m. Not everybody wants to spend the whole day at the bike race. That's a really important thing to consider, especially when we have new riders, new families coming in. You know, they're used, you have to think about the non-cyclists. They're used to going to a fall sports activity where they have a 2-hour slot of time where they're going to watch a ball game, maybe help coach, maybe participate, maybe work at the concession stand, and they go home and they do the next thing. And I think if we're going to make a pivot to try and grow junior cycling, grow cycling in general, we've got to look at that model. That's really important. Our fee structures, our scheduling, all of it.
No, one thing that is important going along with that is like, so with entry fees and not charging, most races that I've seen in New England do a good job with offering like a lower junior entry fee. So say it's $25 instead of the full price 40. I mean, it seems kind of makes sense. And also being considerate of that, what comes with that race time. So if you're charging them $20, then they should get like about 30 minutes of racing sort of thing, where you're not just setting them out in the course of 15 minutes and they're gone, or you're charging a full price and they're only getting 30 minutes sort of thing. So just considering that is important, and there's like value add, especially, and it's not just about that. I mean, I'm sure many of you could argue your kids could care less how much the race costs you, but you care, and that's you care, and that's you are part of the determinant on whether your kids can participate in the sport. Obviously, they have some say in it, but you are arguably very more motivated.
And consider that, you know, once the child gets to 18 and they're out of the house, it might be worthwhile to look at continuing the junior pricing models in the U23 category. When we talked about these riders as being vulnerable, we see a drop off in the sport at 2 points. We see a drop off in riders getting to high school. So the largest curve of our sport is at 12 to 14 bubble. Then we see a drop off in high school because it's high school. They have distractions, they're driving, whatever. But then they get to college and that's the second drop off. And we might not get those riders back. I think that's what we're seeing here. We're getting those riders back maybe when they settle down, they want to come back to the sport that they love, or they come to the sport outside of cycling. But we've got that 9-year slot. And maybe we can help by lowering those entry fees for those riders. On top of that, we're building sort of a festival atmosphere with a lot of our events. And one of those components is having clinics to make it easier for new riders and families to get involved in the sport. Matt's doing it with the Frozen 4 series. We're partnering with him as well. We did it last year to have an entry-level rider clinic that will appeal to new men and women who are entering the sport, juniors who are entering the sport who may not have access or know about a junior cycling program like ours or the others in the region. And that entry fee can be tied into their race entry fee. So they're getting the experience, and we talked about this earlier, they're getting the experience of the clinic from a certified coach. They're getting introduced to maybe a club or some other riders as part of that organization, and then they get the opportunity to race. So the more value we can provide for that day, the more we can build around that sort of family time on the race course, the better I think all of our events are going to be.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think part of it is we talked about like experience. A big part of this is not just like when the juniors race at a time and all that stuff. It's kind of the process of the day for them. Like if you have clear signage and stuff like that to direct them, as well as just like people who are relatively educated in what they're doing. So if they are the registration staff, they kind of understand what's going on. They can explain it. They have some patience to deal with the variants. Because look, I mean, we all started with the sport at some point, and how many times did you go up to the registration table and go, what side does the number go? And they give you a snarky response, like, left side, and just like kind of dismiss you. I mean, that plays into part of your experience. So stuff like that, and just kind of training volunteers on how to handle that stuff. It's good to do.
registration. But we're the customer service business here. We're trying to retain these customers. We want them to go to, I want my customers to go to your events because that builds a great schedule for the rest of the year and it builds a sense of community. So in talking more about staffing and flow of the day, podiums are a really important part of this. If the results taken out and families are waiting around and nothing is happening, there's no information going out, that's the drag. Especially when they have sort of a set time that they want to boogie. You know, I know that there's a lot of factors in this. You're waiting on your results people to get the results posted. You've got to wait until the 15-minute protest period is over. I love what NBX does. They have this, if you haven't seen it, they've got this big chart. It's got a list of all the podiums for the day. So the riders can come in, registration can say, this is where the podium's going to be, this is the time. It's just nothing but information. This goes back to your point about signage, that if we know where the parking is, we know where the medical tent is, we know where registration is, all of these things are really mapped out. A lot of that goes to the social media plan when you got to the event. They just want information. Because oftentimes promoters and volunteers are running around with lots of things to do. So the more information you put at their fingertips leading up to the event and at the event as far as signage is concerned, the better the flow is.
And friendly staff also extends to like people like the officials, and it's maybe something to bring up at the official summit and for any officials in the room. But being friendly and welcoming and like not being a super grouchy, grumpy person that's just laying down the hammer. Not like any of us have ever seen that. It's good.
Do you ever walk up to Alan during the day? Oh my God.
One thing for officials that my comment is on a lot of our races, he's pushed us with the kids is if you have help with results, you come see me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Teaching the kids that self-advocacy,
Yes.
not being scared of officials and.
Yep. And if I have a kid who is a little worried, I will go with them, but encourage them to do the talking. Because it has to come from them and they need to be able to express, I might not have seen what happened. If it was out on a cyclocross course out on the back part, I'm not going to have seen that. I have no idea what happened. But I'll go with them. I don't mind. All the officials know me by now. Every single
But it's
one of
something
them.
that's race can help kind of facilitate talking to the officials too and giving them the lowdown and that kind of stuff and what's going on. Make sure they're conveying where rollout is, that you come immediately after the race. Don't go back to your car and change and then come up. That sort of thing. It's super important. It's all about this communication thing.
What quick thing, Aaron, it's a lesson that I think I've learned well from our race. I think I picked up from you guys in the past, and that is have all your prizes sorted out beforehand. It makes life so much easier, it goes so much quicker. And maybe it sounds like an obvious thing, but like at Bishop's, for example, we had everything graded out beforehand, and just being able to just pull that out, especially if you have multiple podiums as part of the series, that kind of thing, it will minimize the confusion, it will emphasize fairness, and I think everybody will go away feeling like things went a lot smoother and easier.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. The one flip side to that, as a promoter, the riders who care about podiums and results need to hang around to do that. I hunt them down all the time. They disappear. It's like, it's very, very frustrating.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, they already hear about it. We try to, all of our sub-team coaches, we try to make them aware of when we're going to do podiums and so on. But, at a race, at a venue, especially when parking and everything's all spread out, it's difficult.
And you're gonna go trying to pass a couple of years, get the podium out immediately after what the fire crosses. So it's only a few minutes apart, you're probably not gonna get a protest, you do it right then there, right on the side of the road, catching your breath, you do it immediately.
And
Parking is a mile away.
But how do you deal with protests?
Well, depends on deal with it. Podium is not a result. That's a big thing. Podium is not a result. Typically, I ask them right there, are we good with this? And all the kids are like, yeah, we're good.
The parents speak out.
Yeah.
And part of and going along with this whole podium sort of thing is prizes. Prizes for juniors, like, I would say for the most part, save the cash and use it. Use the cash person, like pro and masters, or kind of whatever you feel is necessary. And kids and anyone feel free to jump in who has kids or even kid club or anything like that. But with prizes, like having something that's kid friendly and being conscious about that with Michael on, or 9 through 12 is probably different than 15, 18.
Yeah.
Cracker beers, right?
So I'll give you one example. There was an ice cream truck and one kid said, you know what, I don't want this, I'd rather have ice cream. And so I grabbed all the kids and just bought them ice cream.
Yeah,
Because that's all they wanted. They didn't want.
It's not gonna be
Like,
perfect.
whatever it was they were getting, they didn't want that.
Yeah.
They were just happy with ice cream. And I'm like, bag of candy and ice cream, like, that's what these little kids want. Like, that's what they want. You know, and they were so happy, they were running around, they were so happy.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to cost for us.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a simple little thing.
It's something that you think they're gonna appreciate, try to be creative, ask around, Google it, have some fun.
Just get great size.
And also like, speaking from personal experience and having, thinking about that, it's like, oh, I can worry about prizes later. Just think about it in your downtime now. Like, it's super easy to spend half an hour right now Googling cool prizes for an event. Well, maybe not right now, but later on. Then waiting until 2 weeks before race day and you have a million things going on, you're trying to figure it out, and you're scrambling to get these prizes ordered from your local bike shop or picking them up. And I've done that more times than I'm proud to admit, and just realizing that's super important.
So merchandise prizes rather than medals.
Maybe just medals, or
Maybe medals too.
I charge you $10 to raise better than medals, even if it's just something small. The Cheshire Cross does a great T-shirt every year, and they give them away as a prize, and that's sort of a highly coveted thing. Even for Mansfield Hollow, a purple sweatshirt, and those kids wear the sweatshirts with pride. They love it. That sort of builds the event, and we'll lead up to the next year. So if you've got an event, yeah, we have a rack of them. Yeah.
A question. When you talk about prizes, do you feel, especially with the group that you're on, what is your take on participation? So not everybody's on the podium, not everybody's going to receive, you know, a finisher medal. But for a lot of kids, you know, what is something the organizer can do to benefit all the participants in the race, to keep them motivated to come back and keep giving it their all?
We do something a little different, at least we did this past year at our Tuesday night crit. We've got 3 junior races and junior nights there. I don't really like participation medals. I think it just lowers the bar for the whole event. But one night we brought in an ice cream truck, and every kid got ice cream on CCAP. The other 2 nights we did barbecue. So that every kid feels like they're getting something out of it. They're gonna race, at the end of the race, they're gonna grab a burger, they're gonna grab an ice cream cone, and, you know, they remember that event. Yeah. We do the same thing in our race notes. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll say that. That also leads into creating a festival atmosphere. I talked to a lot of our kids in the last few weeks, and I thought back about last season about the races that really made a mark. And they were Greenfield, Northampton, and Belltown. Those are the 3 races that all of our kids talked about the whole season, or at least after the race. Can't wait till next year to ride Belltown. That course was incredible. You guys did a really good job of creating that tent row and festival atmosphere. Northampton is an event that every kid looks forward to, every kid in the CCAP looks forward to going to every year, because it just feels like a party. And it feels like that's the cyclocross party in the Northeast. And Greenfield was an event that it's the day after the E-race event, so a lot of our kids do E-race, went up to Greenfield the next day, and it's all we're talking about doing this year. It's going to be a big part of their summer. So those little things, like having Jake's Ice Cream there, and having the Velocio trailer, and having that set up in Town Green, it's a lot of fun for the kids, and I feel like we can all do a better job of creating a festival atmosphere to keep people around and engaged.
Yeah, it doesn't have to cost you the world either. It's about encouraging people to come out as a community too. It's not just about like you're spending like $2 on having this awesome like overhead banner over your start finish area, and like buying fences with cool designs, stuff like that. I mean, sure, that is helpful and that creates a legitimate experience. But having local teams and partners of yours coming out in tents and kind of creating that sense of community is one easy sort of hack.
And I feel like we can turn any park or any parking lot great to do a real festival if we try. Think about the event that you want.
So you mentioned, or you suggested like 3 age groups, 9 to 12, 14, 14, 15, 18. So clearly most or all of us don't have 3 separate time slots to run junior races. Do you have best practices around how to manage this like situation of separate categories? You want to do separate categories, but you can't do separate starts. So like, what do you recommend?
Do you have 1 hour?
Let's say I have 1 hour.
So you have 1 hour, group of 9 to 12, and the 13, 14s on the course at the same time, and then 15 to 18s out. So you do a 30-minute race or a 25-minute race for the younger category.
Wait, what was the other category you said?
So 9 to 12, 13 to 14, 15 to 18.
And John cross?
No, I'm talking about road. Okay. Yeah, just I wanted to make sure. Yeah, both crits and cross. Actually,
Yeah, I was
so
gonna say.
crits and cross. Yeah.
So those are really different use cases, actually, right? Because
Yeah, I
cross is really hard to control the window, especially with like that. So do you think it's the same, do both for half an hour?
Yeah, we've been doing it at the TNC with great success.
What's the TNC?
The Tuesday night crit, the ramp.
Okay,
At the ramp.
now we're talking.
So
Let me ask you your opinion on this, so. We're trying to make this commitment to parity, like all the way down to Tour Series schedule, whatever it is. It's probably possible to do. It would cost a huge amount of money to do it, right? Like to really be perfectly equal in your category offerings, I have full fields and empty fields, right? And so I can't exactly do it. So that's why some of the women's categories are a little bit combined to try to like offer those categories, but I have to squish them together into a slot. But with UCI junior races, I can't do that. I can have other races on the course at the same time that can't be mixed in, they can't start together. And next year, so this year, the way I addressed that for the junior women is I paid the 15 to 18 junior women for that same prize list that I was paying the 17 to 18 men. So not perfect, but worked really well. I think they were happy to get that money. Half the time I didn't have to pay it all out, right? Like 10 places, like they didn't all come for the money or 15 places. Next year, we can have UCI junior women's races. The rules are going to be the same. We don't have to, we aren't going to be obligated to, but it'll be available to us to run. So of course we're going to run it. Well, now I have the same problem. That 17 to 18-year-old junior women's race can't be mixed with another field. It has to have its own start. It can be other races on the course. You can't do that in the elites, you do it with juniors. So the thing that I think that I want to try to do, and I have to talk to the other organizers, is I'm going to put all the junior men in a 1 hour slot. And then I'm going to put all the junior women in a